Good morning. All right. Don't mind me as usual, just getting stuff situated here. Doing better and better and better. My goal is to only leave this loading thing up for like a minute or two in the mornings. So I think that's a success if you ask me. Um, if not, I don't care. Anyway, hope you guys are having a good morning. Oh, Monday mornings are always a unique one, that is for sure. But we're here and we're living it. So I guess we'll start off by swapping back to the camera. Good morning. So I do have a goal in mind today. We went through a lot last week going through the human figure, right? We did a lot of female anatomy work and breaking stuff down from other artists, and I kind of wanted to keep up that pattern this week and look at more of the face, though, right? So kind of flip it. So we looked at a lot of the bodies last week, stylizing that. How do we stylize the face, and how do we work with the face? Mainly because it just helps to go through and learn, right? The more you learn, the more you know, obviously. But also, if you're rusty like me, it kind of helps just kind of jog it. But also, just talking stuff through is always a fun thing, and I like to showcase how to learn, right? Because learning is something that I feel like is difficult, and I like to think the past, streams and stuff that have gone over how to study, how to do those things have really solidified like what to break down, how to break down these shapes, how to break down what you're seeing into in and how to internalize it into learning, not just looking at somebody else's work, right? So, as usual, wanted to start off. I've got a handful of ArtStation stuff up as per usual, and just take a peek for anybody new. These are just, we just go through ArtStation the beginning of the day in the morning just to kind of get the creative juices flowing, right? Just kind of peek around, see what new stuff people have made in the past weekend in this instance, or throughout the couple days in the week. And but yeah, so normally I pop up, I'll get 5 quick things to take a peek at, see what the artists are working on, and just appreciate stuff at first, right? So this one caught my eye first and foremost just because of the color scheme, right? I like the green. I thought that was cool. That's not like a green and dark gray. Like this is not super common, I feel like, in a lot of stuff. So I wanted to see what it was about. The Wacom Warrior, I just realized that he's literally like, he's holding a stylus from Wacom. That's cute. Didn't even realize that. As usual, I enjoy when it's suddenly a handful of sketches that I thought it was just as black and green, but wait, there's more. This feels super, almost like when fitness companies have tried to market for more like, look, we're sleek, we're agile, we're this. Like it almost feels like Under Armour advertisement for some reason. The way this guy's like sleek, slender, beefy, and the way like these panel lines kind of are definitely has Under Armour advertisement vibes, which isn't a bad thing. Just as someone who buys Under Armour, it's just a note. But yeah, I do like these color schemes. I always like when they pull from an object. So like this was clearly just a small firearm, this little pistol. Or as I have a super random story. I have a friend who shall go unnamed. Okay. We've played shooting games 10 plus years. I don't know how long I've known this person. Um, and he has the worst habit of in his head. So if you're playing a shooting game, you kind of want to know like what gun the person has, what someone has if they're dropping something. And I remember like in the Division and other games like that where I'd be like, what are you talking about? He just called any pistol to him is just gun. So I've got a gun here. No crap, man. Like we're playing Rainbow Six or we're playing, a Tom Clancy game or something like that. Like I got a gun here. I'm gonna drop a gun. What gun? He's like, yeah, the gun. A pistol. So for you dinguses out there who call all pistols gun, Thanks. Thanks a lot. You confuse the hell out of me when we're trying to play competitive games. I don't know what's going on here, but that kind of grosses me out. I've got like the tryptophobia, the thing with the holes, right? I can't do holes. And I don't know why this, like, I get he's supposed to be like earthbendery maybe, and this is like rocky stuff. I don't like it though. I don't like it one bit. Looks cool though. I'm not saying it doesn't. But me, for my money, makes me uncomfortable. That's cute. This little chunky rock boy. And then just some faces. All right, Damien, Audino. What else do we make? Okay, so a handful of different styles. Looks like they play with this. Give me some sort of sharks. Oh my goodness. As this is 10 out of 10, friend. I wasn't like super sold on this person's stuff. I was like, yeah, all right, they're not bad. Boom. Done. Love it. All you needed. These are hella cute. This one I think is my favorite. The hammerhead. This goofy little hammerhead. Yes, please. 100% yes, please. I've got all the original Street Sharks and stuff like that, and then they remade the Street Sharks into like the new versions of the Street Sharks. They're just basically the re-releases, and man, I can't get enough of these kind of things. Which reminds me, oh my gosh, so we were at our comic book shop this weekend, and we were looking. I was just going to get the new Ninja Turtle TMNT. I'm sorry, Motu crossover, right? Ninja Turtles and He-Man. Absolutely cool. Love it. Yep. Sorry. And when we were there looking for it, we stumbled on a comic I swore I saw before, but I don't remember it. So anyway, it was the Alligator Loki holiday special. Okay. It's so cute. So a while back, they released a comic. It was just like, I don't know, it was like 8 months ago, 9 months ago now, maybe a year at this point. I don't even remember. But it was Jeff, right? And Jeff is blown up now, the land shark with Marvel Rivals. But like that issue was adorable because there's no dialogue. There's not a lick of words, not a single piece of text. Other than like, you know, like maybe like it was onomatopoeia where it's like the sound of something. But that is exactly how this Alligator Loki is too, where Jeff was just going into getting in mischief and doing all these things, right? And it was adorable. And then now this is the Alligator Loki. It was a holiday special, so I'm guessing this came out around the holidays and we just missed it. But super cute. Jeff is in it even and stuff like that. But no, seeing these guys reminded me of the Alligator Loki comic, which was super cute. Look forward to reading it used loosely, but you know. So this is again with the names Boykongtin. Don't know, but I love this. I love the fact that it's like a little old man where he's got his glasses. It looks like he's got like the Fu Manchu almost. Not Fu Manchu, because that'd be like that. But like whatever the lower chin beard is. And the little hat even. That's good. Just a Lunar New Year celebration piece. Love the contrast too, because obviously like greens and reds, super complementary, right? And so having this whole big old green snake with her red hair, like glowy, fiery red, really helps pop, right? Ooh, immediately following. A hobby 2D concept working in. Okay. I was like, how are you just a hobby 2D artist looking like this? How are you a hobby artist working in games? Doesn't that make you a professional artist? Maybe they do 3D work and this 2D stuff is just their hobby. Very like Ghibli world building energy with these for sure. And then with the watercolors, kind of, the style helps push that even more. Super duper duper cute. Obviously, Mononoke vibes here with that. But yeah, 10 out of 10. Uh individual, I cannot read their name again. I love a dumb looking deer. Like reindeer, because if you think about reindeer, they're so big and strong, like actual like reindeer, right? So big and strong, and like to me, they feel so majestic. They're such gorgeous creatures. And then when people draw them like this, where they're just super goofy and they almost look like they're like sled dogs then, but like giant reindeer energy, I really appreciate that. All right, Vipin Jacob, a viz dev artist and character designer. So this immediately, when fear grips you like a monster, this is super Jurassic Park vibes, right? Sitting in the kitchen. But instead of a velociraptor, we got big old gorilla boy. Very cute. Very, very, very simplified shapes for this gorilla, but I like it. It almost at first glance makes him feel like part of the environment with his like tree trunk arms and this sleek look. But he obviously is lit like no other thing really in the scene, which helps him pop out. What else we got? Vipin, Vipin, Vipin. I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce it, but that's how I'm saying it. Okay, so lots of cute stylized creatures and stuff like that. Very like Illustrator, right? Like a kid's illustration energy. Like I could see any number of these in a kid's book, like going through Barnes and Noble, just cruising through. Really likes, I've noticed a couple of these now with this just like halftone glow. I personally like halftones for me are a tough one because when they're used willy-nilly, they just feel weird. They feel cheap. People who can use halftones like masterfully are a whole other beast and probably learned traditionally than using the actual screen tones and halftones. For those that don't know, like manga and stuff like that, when it was drawn, like they didn't draw in a lot of those that really clean, like the halftone, the dots and stuff. That's actually like a piece of paper. Like imagine you draw on paper and then you have another piece of paper you put over it and you cleanly cut out that paper and it adheres to it then. And so you're actually like adding on a physical piece of a halftone to your drawings, which you had to be much more deliberate with, obviously, when doing something like that. Whereas like this is just whoop, a brush, right? Not discrediting it, just saying, I feel like if you had to go in with that like meticulous nature of learning it, that would only further your expertise with it. Yeah, these are cute. We've got Christoph Young. Again, I had clicked on the one that was green and black, and so I thought this was funny that this had a similar like olive drabby kind of green with black. Very butt heavy on this one, obviously, the way the holsters are set up on the cheeks. That seems pretty dangerous, how she's about to catch that knife. Damn. A style. Oh, so this is something they'd done before. Oh, cool. Like a more realistic. What is their energy then if they've got okay, a good mix. Holy cow. Pretty realistic rendering with a lot of their stuff, which looks very clean. But it looks like they're trying to push more stylized stuff now, which is obviously more what I'm a fan of. That's what I vibe with. Ooh, love these colors together too. This gold, her dark complexion, and this teal. Very, very clean combo. I like it. The we've talked about like skin tones and stuff before. This is an interesting one where he does a lot of the shadows, but then it looks like a lot of these highlights are subset by like a soft brush with reds, right? In the shadows and in the highlights. So in both extremes, it looks like they are playing with that little bit of subsurface scattering, seeing a bit of different color. Oh, I forgot to give it a like. Cool, cool, cool. Oh, don't mind me. I was looking for lamps. That's a whole other story. That drove me crazy, but that's a story for later. Maybe there's a seep. This is plastic garbage. That's my. I'll complain later. We're looking at art now, right? We'll close that out. Nobody needs to know. Shh, I'm not looking at lamps. I wasn't doing it. Don't look at that. Okay, last one. Leone Fez. Leone. Without posting anything to ArtStation, busy 3 years, gonna post a bunch. Cool. This one actually had Sakura here. And this is what made me attracted to this one because I saw a Street Fighter character and my brain immediately, as I've said, you show me Street Fighter, I'm probably gonna click on it. And this was no different. And I was greeted with a big cami then from the SF6, her new outfit, which looks fantastic. Still very sexualized, very like playing up her butt and all that. But the fact that she's got like this nice like long jacket and her like Union Jack on it, it feels more clean and more like a normal character outfit rather than like the SF2 design of just like, look, here's my butt cheeks hanging out. We've talked about it too, like if we can see how this person is even just adding this basic gradient before just in the sketch work, right? And that's what I've talked about too, where like this is really important to do above everything. Like once you have your colors and all that, you kind of want some basic gradient above it all in a sense, depending on your layer style, how you'll blend it. But to kind of move the eye, despite whatever color you have, despite any of that, you use this and we can see there's movement to this character without any color then, right? Like our eye is attracted to different things and moves based off of this changing gradient. Okay, we got a Chun-Li. This person knows what's up. I respect it. I like this. This is cute. Black and white, but then giving it just a single strong color really is effective. I do really, really like that. Because it feels like it's colored then. Like it feels very conscious. But at the same time, it's not like they had to break down and really think of much color other than the base value. Smart. So I'm curious when I click on this person's stuff then, because it said the last time they've posted was 3 years ago. So curious when we click on their page what we're gonna find in terms of style and what they do. Man, they do so much anatomy work with all these sketches. I am a fan. Scandalous. Yeah, I want to go back to. Did I scroll past it too fast? This guy. This is. Can I not zoom? No, I can't. These are dope. The way they break down the shapes are very, very, very clean. And I really like when they do stupid stuff like that, where it's like they they really line out the body, all this stuff, and then doop, doop, little smiley faces they just slap on. Just funny. That's obviously not something they would finish with, but I appreciate the humor in being a little silly with it. Yeah, these are cool. I like the way this person sketches out the anatomy. It's very, very pleasing to look at. It's always crazy too when you see people's like rough sketches, like this Chun-Li here. To me, oh, I could zoom in on this one. I could totally see finishing this and looking amazing. It is interesting. Their poses are great, but for some reason, this Chun-Li, right, and this Sakura, it feels like I don't know, like from rib to where the neck is feels super duper duper long for some reason. I don't know if that's just me, but both of those have like a very elongated approach, especially Sakura. Again, just a style for theirs, but yeah, I need to. So what I'm going to do later now is I've got my gesture drawing app where I can like, I've got all my reference images that I've saved over the years that I've bought from different packs from, you know, reference artists and stuff like that, just poses, right? Thousands of pictures, thousands of them. And I've got an app on the Office PC that I used to do figure drawing, like just like rough gesture drawing work, similar to like what's up here on the right. And once I finish up with this stuff, I wanted to move over that software and all the images, maybe just put them on a flash drive for all I care, or you know, an external, and just kind of move it between. And then I would do morning warm ups like that here, just like maybe 2 1 minutes, a 2 minute, a 5 minute, and a 10 minute, or maybe I skip the 2 and I go 5, you know, like whatever. Do 2 1 minutes, a 5 minute, and a 10 minute sketch or something like that, for gesture work, just to kind of warm up, right? I feel like that's something that I'm struggling with, that like whatever I draw first on stream ends up looking a little rough, to say the least. So if I get used to doing more of the gestural stuff on stream, I think that will definitely help. But yeah, Leone Fez, amazing stuff. Let's see what they've done before. Like I said, they noted they've not posted in years. So curious what their stuff from 3 years ago looks like. 3 years is a long time, right? And you can tell. This is 4 years ago. This doesn't even look like the same artist, right? They put in so much work. Like, this isn't bad. I'm not saying this is bad by any means. These are great, but you can see the growth from that last thing that we looked at from their sketches from now, right? Definitely a good amount of growth. And this is a prime example too when I talked about the gradients too, right? Look at this. There's nothing, there's no shading, there's nothing, but it just is use of dark and light to convey where the eye should be looking, right? So even this like impact is super dark. Her like bandana, scarf, whatever you call them, from her like the buns are dark. Her foot is the darkest right at us, but as we get further away to focus on her face, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. Like, that kind of stuff is so important and so simple to miss, right? Those gradient scales in the overarching image. Wow. Good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. I'd be curious if they've got, probably not. Whenever I try and Google people like this, I was like, do you have an Instagram? Ugh, I'm not going to click on a Twitter link. Sorry. I bet they got cool stuff, it looks like, whatever this is. But I do not feel like clicking on a Twitter link. Ain't gonna happen. Oh well. Blue sky. Blue sky for days. This is the move, right? Cool. All right. Well, I think that was a good amount of. Well, how's our timeline? 10:55. We are, man. I'm getting so good at timing this out. You don't even know. So I didn't have my little piece of chocolate this morning because I actually was really focused on getting a lot. So I woke up this morning and immediately I got out of bed, made the bed, did my, the morning jive. And then I had to focus on getting other stuff. So for today, I'm going to show a quick snippet then here. So we've got, I wanted to break down faces, right? And so first and foremost, easiest thing to break down faces is Andrew Loomis. So for those who don't know, Andrew Loomis is a renowned artist from many, many moons ago. I've got Figure Drawing for All It's Worth. It's one of my favorite books growing up when I learned how to draw. That was the jam, right? I've got it. I had it in here, but I realized I forgot Figure Drawing for All It's Worth doesn't have the same breakdown of faces, but also I can't show you a physical book, right? Like I can, but I can't. And so I just found a PDF of one of his older books too called Fun with a Pencil. And this breaks down his approach to drawing faces and the construction of the human face, which is something that so many people have their own methodology for, right? So many people do it differently, but a lot of stuff revolves nowadays around the Loomis method. But so I found the PDF for that so I could show it on stream more clearly, the content itself. It's realistically nothing crazy, right? The breakdown, but it's one of those things that just is a great guide. And I feel like it's something that people get misconstrued sometimes too. So not only is it that, but also I've not studied this in like really like sat down and thought about the core process in like a billion years now. Like as you get older and you do the stuff, like you kind of just think you remember everything, right? Because you're like, I studied that extensively. I'm good. Do you though? Do you remember? So sometimes it helps to go back and just kind of brush up on the basics. And now that I'm talking stuff out, I enjoy talking it out and it helps re-solidify stuff for me. But for now, I'm gonna solidify my little piece of chocolate. But then on top of that, I wanted faces to study, right? So really quickly, I was just trying to find a few artists I like that stylize faces in a way that are not so pushed beyond the normal proportions. Because like in my room, in the house for that matter, we have a bunch of Scotty Young, okay? Scotty Young does great work, but the way he stylizes faces is pretty extreme, right? Very basic shapes. Depending, right? Like I'm thinking like oopsies. I hate Fairyland and stuff like that. I should have had something up for that. My apologies. I accidentally closed out. But like if we look up Scotty Young, I love his stuff, right? But a lot of his work is like to the extreme, right? Like they're just basic shapes, most of his faces, which I absolutely adore. It litters our it litters our home. However, for the case of what I was trying to like illustrate today, didn't really work. So I was trying to quickly go through and think of some artists that had styles that vibe, right? So I thought of Peach Momoko. She does a lot of very anime inspired, very watercolored things. So I grabbed a couple quick clips of her faces. Peach Momoko does amazing work. She's primarily a comic artist. She does a lot of like the variant covers and stuff like that. She's been doing her own X-Men line lately. But she does very cool stuff. Her style is also akin, I'd shown it before, to Fukikawa, I believe, the artist from the original Final Fantasy games, where they use a lot of heavy inks and watercolors and kind of like stuff like this where the noses are almost like non-existent for a lot of instances. But beyond that, Tanner Wilson, TM Wilson, nothing crazy, right? Their style is pretty simplified too. But again, if I was just trying to get a few different artists that I like to kind of take a peek at, and then Peter Straubel, a lot of Straubel's stuff I have here is cut specifically. That's the reason a lot of these started to be cut in the first place. Straubel does a lot of, as you can guess just by this image, very like NSFW kind of energy. And so I wanted to make sure I just caught the faces though, because I really like his faces. The way he breaks down the nose is kind of how I like to work with it. So it's interesting. It's cool to find an artist who kind of works the way you do, but the way you'd rather work, if that makes sense, right? Because if you try and find someone who is like so drastically not your style, yes, you can learn something from them, but there's an innate way you, as a human being, like to make a mark. And so trying to go against that kind of goes against your nature, right? And can you do it? Absolutely. You can evolve, you can grow, you can do whatever you want. But for me, I like to find artists who basically aren't so extreme from me, right? Like there's an artist, his name is Jim Mafood. Thinking of Scotty Young, there's a Jim Mafood. They're friends. Jim Mafood stuff is so extreme. And again, probably quite NSFW if I were to peek it, because he does a lot of gestural work with the female figure too. But like that style is so extreme, so far from what I draw like. I can appreciate it and I can study it, but I don't necessarily think I'll be taking specifics rather than broad stroke from it, if that makes sense. So instead of like Strauble, I can genuinely learn how they do this with their nose because I like it and it fits the way I already draw a nose. Whereas if I look at like Jim Mafood, who his is so far gone from the way that I naturally draw, I can learn from it and gain something and fold it into mine, but it's not quite as direct. If that, again, I feel like that's a hard concept to wrap around, but that's kind of what I'm getting at. And so that's why these artists that I picked are the ones that they are. But so grabbed a few of his, right? So I wanted to first and foremost, just though, go through the Loomis method. So for those that don't know, just to kind of peep that up and see. So I'm gonna slap on our usual. So I know the Sock Ramen with his lo-fi stuff had posted that he did a new like a Castlevania mix, but on Spotify still I only see a few things. So I'm not quite sure if they've not posted them yet. I don't know if they've not put them up yet on this. And I have to, like, the way I've got my audio track set up, I don't want to play it on YouTube because it tracks differently in terms of how it'll be stored with my information. Like in terms of what's playing on the stream. So I guess we'll just go back to the usual for now with just his stuff. That's a bummer. I was hoping we'd see the newer stuff up here on Spotify. Alas, we do not. And that's okay. So, getting the iPad set up real quick. We can see here, right? So I'm going to show first, and then I'll swap to the iPad view. So when we're looking at the faces, he does a good, up here, showcase of normally how you draw. You just kind of draw the circle, you draw the, the cross sections, and you just fill in the space, right? But a lot of people, like a lot of his stuff too, when you're doing just a single ball, usually that circle, since it's stylized, represents the eye line. And that's something that gets lost in translation. Sometimes people will see other ways of breaking things down and they don't know what the lines actually represent. And if you don't know what the lines represent, then it's for naught, right? Like that's the whole point of putting in these landmarks, to understand where and how these shapes would form along the face and where they'd be placed. So he shows here trick stuff where it's like you can add different shapes for cheeks and stuff, like very like almost like old school political cartoony energy a lot of these have, right? But oh, excuse me. Oh man. But later he breaks into the divided ball and plane method, which we'll see up here on the top right now. So it's basically the idea of where you see a lot of things where you draw a circle and then you draw like a jawline, right? But how you break down those lines is important. And so basically what you want to do is note that like what each line means. So if we look here, when you break down and block in the head shape, right? It always starts with a circle, but then we do a center line. And the center line here, though, isn't the eye line. And I think that's a very important thing to note, that it is the brow line, which means that is right here. So it's above the eye. You could argue almost it's the top of the eye, but not quite, right? Your brow is not the top of your eye if you look at the human face. And so I feel like it gets lost that so many drawing methods show that that circle are the eyes, but that's not the case. right? The circle is the brow line if you're working in this methodology. Like that first line, right? The half line. And then you construct the face around it, right? So all you have to really do is once you draw in your jaw, and jaws can be varying sizes and all those kind of things, right? Is you just kind of look at where everything's broken down. And so you just kind of half it, right? So the bottom of the nose generally is the same distance from your brow. So you look here. So we'll read it. Does he have anything here? So he breaks down more clearly, though this is an old file to see. But you can see the idea that from the top of your brow, right, to the bottom of the nose, to the chin, those are all equidistant, right? And then the hairline. So hairline is similar. And again, all of these go out the window when you start stylizing and breaking up shapes and doing all these things. But it's a foundational thing that we've talked about, that you can't break a shape without understanding where it came from. And that is super duper important. And so here we can see that generally, if you're looking like front on, you break it down, top of the nose or bottom of the nose, midline of the brow, hairline, chin. These are all like landmarks of how a face is constructed. Because if you look at my face as I'm staring at the camera, right? But then if I look down, proportions change a little bit, but not really. Like you need to stretch it, but a lot of pieces remain the same regardless of which way you're looking. It's just a matter of understanding the relation of each thing. So as we're looking through these, we'll zoom out, and I'll pull out the iPad in a second so we can actually just start drawing the stuff. But here's I think he does a more simple breakdown here. Okay, yeah. So he talks about divisions of middle line are equal. So the middle line divisions, like I said, are hair, brow, nose, chin. So you just have each of these a clean distance between. And that really helps just to set the face. And then from there, you stretch it, you push it, you do whatever the heck you want. But again, understanding the core is very important. But something interesting that he does too, that notes that I feel like goes lost sometimes, is people view heads as like a circle. But if you're viewing a head and you think about it, like, it's kind of flat, right? The side of your head's pretty flat. And that's what he does. He says, draw a circle. And I think up here even shows like a little thing of like, then chop it off, right? Whoopsies. How? It is not letting me moderate. Sorry. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to moderate this individual's stuff, but normally it gives me an option to like moderate. But it's not letting me right now. I wonder if anybody understands the difference. Because yeah, normally I click on the name and it tells me options of moderation here. I'm not seeing a single bit of moderation allowed on this one. So just ignore it. How about that for now, right? I don't know how to fix that right now. Usually I've got some sort of option. Weird. Yeah, I can't. All right, I guess I don't need to keep sitting here for that. It's not that big of a deal. I say that, but then inside I'm still like, I want to fix it. How do I get rid of this garbage? Don't know. I wish I knew how. It looks stupid. Anybody know how to moderate a message when the option doesn't come up? Because that would be cool. I don't know. I can't figure it out. Disregard it. Stupid spam throwing off my Loomis method discussion. What a dick. Anyway, all I was saying was that the side of the face then isn't round. And he illustrates that pretty well and pretty clearly by just showing like, chop it off, right? Straight up chop it off. And so then what you have is actually like, it sounds dumb. Like I picture it more of like a wheel of cheese or something like that. Like where obviously a wheel is usually more of a wheel, but like the idea of like chopping off the sides, like a big thing of cheese has the flat sides. But so it's really nothing too intense to remember once you get like those basic shapes, the basic forms. So I'm going to slap over the iPad now so I can kind of showcase what he's talking about, right? Let me grab this bigums. Okay. Let me plug it in. So this actually works. I lost the pencil. How do I do that all the time? My desk is not large. Just kidding. I found it. It was on my crotch. Let me get over to iPad drawing, right? Okay. So we can see the Loomis head there. So earlier this weekend when I was doing, like I said, just different studies I just started drawing faces, right? Just drawing little bits of faces. Grabbing different people's reference and stuff and looking at. But anyway, so to the matter at hand, when we talk about the human head then, right? We've got, everything starts with our circle, right? So we have the circle, and what Loomis is discussing here is what I was just getting at, that a lot of people mix up. So like, depending on the style you're going, it can work with this, but like sometimes people will draw like this, right? We'll draw this, and their brain says, oh, I add the shapes in, basic shape, right? Let's say, boop. But then they add, this is where the eyes are. And it doesn't look right. And that's because usually the way they're doing it is like a weird hybrid mix where it shouldn't be. So this is the brow line, right? So if this is your brow line, as Loomis dictates, then let's just draw the face then to show. So if this is the shape of the face and the face comes down here, right? We cut the side. So this is flat, let's say. We have the strong middle line, but then here is a brow. So this is more of like the eyebrow of the person. And the eye line is actually just under that. And so if we take then, if we say this is brow, right? And this is the bottom of the chin, we divide that. So if it's this much space, about here would be half of that, right? About-ish. So then we'd say this is nose line, and this is chin line. And then we look at how long this space is, and we'd say, okay, about here would be hairline then. So obviously that looks weird. It looks like a bunch of lines, you're just blotting things in. But then if we take this and we cut in to the eye line, where the eye line kind of recesses down from the brow, right? If we look at our brow, it goes boop in, back into our skull. So at this 3/4 angle, it would go recede back to where the eye line would be, because the eyes rest slightly in the middle of that space. So this is going to look stupid because I'm just super blocking it. So bear with how like weirdly basic this looks. But if we wrap that shape still around the head, and this circle cuts in this way, the way we dictate the jaw is by then idea of going forward for the cheekbone and then down. And so right in the, if this was the center line for the head going this way then, right? Center lines go both ways. That is kind of then our ear line down here in this lower quadrant that exists. So again, I've got better ways to explain it, sure. I'm just trying to break down real quick the base shapes. And showing a basic understanding and how it gets broken later. Like how you stretch it, how you push it later. But so now we have the shape of a head. Obviously, I drew this one a pretty longer jaw down here. So it does feel a little longer, the chin and stuff. But the overall shape and proportions make enough sense when you look at it. Your brain goes, yep, that looks right. And then the mouth can go wherever. Boop. Ugly, but it gets the idea across. And again, like I said, usually when I first start drawing in the morning, it looks like absolute dog water, and that's okay. Wanted to go to another point on his, though, that he talks about. Where is it? Okay, I do like this where he talks about here, where noting, in fact, that the eye line is kind of more so where the bottom of the socket is. So it could be, it's not like saying it's right in the middle of the eye, right, or wherever. So it's kind of variable, but it's basically, imagine like this hole that you have. Like if you feel where your cheekbone goes in to where your eye like recedes, it's that space. The top and the bottom are those spaces kind of. And so the eye can rest anywhere within there. So it's not looking at these things and saying, this is exactly how it is, right? Which comes to this point here, which I really love that he talks about this here. Where is this? There we go. The idea of everything's, he addresses like, yeah, and then bodies can get weird, right? No body's the same, no face is the same, nothing is the same. So he breaks it down real quick to say like, hey, by the way, look at these weird variations. And it reminds that like everything still follows suit. It's just a matter of how and where you place the pieces, right? So you can see like a long face. Let me bop over to chatting again. So the long face, for example, right? These landmarks still are the same. If we look, the top of the head, the brow line, the nose, the chin. Whereas the proportions still are relatively the same here for a shorter, wider face, right? Hairline, brow, equidistant with the bottom of the nose and the chin. But these two faces look different, right? Completely different faces. But proportionally, the human face still kind of follows rules. Obviously, there's some that break it, but understanding the core rules lets you break it to be like how Scotty Young, stylizes like crazy and all these things. Like, same thing with a pointed face. Same idea, just the chin line's different, the flaring jaw, wide cheekbones. Like, none of these things necessarily break the relation of where these other pieces are. Like, this person, like a high brow, right? This has a slightly different vibe, but it's the idea that it still connects. So like the low brow, the brow actually is here, but then it moves up. So it's still finding these points. It's just a matter of each face kind of feels different when you're utilizing them. And especially from the side view, like the side view is not much different because all it ends up being is just protrusions of this piece, right? So if our face exists as a circle, our like nose to jaw, if we think of like it's just an extra piece past the circle. So really, the landmarks all still fall within the original circle. It's just a matter of how do they protrude? Does your brow stick out? Does your nose stick out? Does your nose go in? Does your chin go way out? Does it, all these things. But again, the core fundamentals of where these placements are still exist, right? And so even here, whether you stylize it or make it slightly more realistic, proportions still always work. And it helps you follow depending on curves, angles, perspective. And it kind of just helps. So like it doesn't, obviously the Loomis method isn't teaching you how to draw. It's teaching you how to understand where to draw, right? Like it's almost like it teaches you how to make blueprints rather than how to draw. And so understanding the blueprints and understanding where these, pieces exist can help. So I'm looking at my iPad right now. I apologize. I'm trying to get that other layer back out. There we go. So back to the iPad itself, we've got just to quickly, like, so without even like thinking too much, if we're just drawing shapes then, right? So we have a circle, we draw our circle. Let's say we're just going to do a pure profile here, right? And we draw our center line would be here, and the other center line would be here, right? Okay, if we're using Loomis's, right? We're using his vibe. That means this circle gets cut on the side, right? Our cheese wheel. That means the center line would be the brow right here, right? That means the ear falls in this quadrant here, right? Then we figure out where we want the chin. So if we have it follow suit down to here, let's say, then we've got brow line here. And so we divide this in half. So nose is about here. Usually then it lines up where the bottom of the circle is usually the mouth. Again, doesn't have to be exact, but that's generally the rule or the pattern. And then the forehead, the hairline would be about here. So again, if we follow, let's say, like a more stylized approach of understanding this, we can even just take, oh, that is an eraser. Oh, iPad. The idea would be the brow goes up, goes in, comes out to the nose, right? This is the bottom of the nose. The mouth here to the chin. And then we follow down this line from the center line here to connect to the jaw. So again, it's not telling you how to draw the thing, but it helps you understand just a quick block in of, oh, that's where the features go, right? Like all of that ends up lining up with little extra work, right? So already you don't have to worry about much else of where it goes. You just have to worry the details. So what kind of hair do they have? What kind of brow do they have? You know, like all the fun details. Like you don't have to overly think about the other pieces. And so understanding how Loomis breaks down these shapes, I wanted then to look at other artists and then not only see how they draw the shapes, but also then break down how do they draw specifics, right? Like an eyeball, a nose, all these things can be drawn in so many different ways. And in terms of studying what they do, you can kind of learn what works, what doesn't, and your own vibe of making a mark. So like, don't mind this weird little just drawing pieces in so we understand what I meant. A little bit of big lips for whatever reason. Again, not the greatest drawing, but we get the idea. So then the hairline would come this way like we established. The cheekbone pulls from this inner circle that we've established. So then the cheekbone would follow down to where the chin changes planes. So it's starting to look like a weird, like iRobot-y kind of energy kind of thing, but that's okay. Here, the hairline, ponytail, cool. We have the shape of a face. I'm not even going to keep that. That looks ugly, but we understand. We understand what I'm getting at with our breakdowns of these shapes, right? So with that, I'm going to get a little water. And we're going to take a peek then at other artists real quick, right? So I wanted to look at, who do we got? We got Peach, like I said, Peter Straubel, and Tanner Wilson. Let's look at Tanner's because we just did a side view anyway. And let's just take a peek at Tanner's real quick and kind of take a, again, these drawings I grabbed of these artists, super basic, some of these, nothing insane. It was just to showcase their placement of landmarks and how it still kind of fits, right? So if we're looking at Peter's here, I'm sorry, Tanner's. Tanner's got this face, right? It would have made more sense if I actually copied these over to my iPad, but you can still see it this way. So if we draw the same way, let's start with a circle, right? If everything we're doing starts with a circle for a face, right? We've got the circle. We draw, which way are they looking? They're looking kind of down, but not too much. Boop. We've got her face curves back, but they've got that same energy that I've talked about where it actually then the nose area, kind of very anime-esque, comes like out, right? Like we've got this protrudy nature, almost like a snout that a lot of artists will do, which makes sense with how the jaw and the nose is structured. It's almost like Hoovian, I like to think of it as, because like the way the nose comes out and down, like I picture something very Seussical, but obviously not precisely. But so if we look at how they break down, they still have the circle. If we consider that the brow line up here, we then have the chin, the nose line is about halfway, right? And so breaking down just the way Wilson has it. Hello, Hamilton's fellow Procreate artists. Yes, Procreate right now is the easiest for me to use on the iPad. I'd rather, honestly, I am a old school digital artist, so I do like my Photoshop and stuff like that. But being where we are, I'm in a game room right now. This is my like streaming room, and the office is where the Cintiq is. And so the office over there is where my Cintiq is that I've done all my professional work on. But in here, much easier to plop in an iPad, right? And the beauty of the iPad and Procreate is you can go wherever, which is pretty great. But yeah, so like we were saying, so if that's like imagine the bottom of the nose line, the chin line, right? We can see how Wilson breaks it down. So if again we looked at Loomis, that means we should draw like kind of like a circle like this, right? Because it looks like their head's actually rotating a little further beyond our perspective here, because it looks like the center line would come a little visible for the back of the head, if anything. So they're looking away. So that would leave the ear kind of here. And then if we follow, the brow line would be that fold up top, the lilt out for the nose. The little mouth is like they showcase the mouth by just that little line, not much, right? It just this little thing. And the chin, we had the center line here, so it would connect to the chin, which means underneath here would be the eye, which follows pretty suit how they're drawing it. At times like this, I almost wish I had it all more consolidated, but it does feel nice having two different setups, you know? But in terms of being able to stream and make content, then a little harder with two different rooms, right? So honestly, having one, like this side of my desk, if you saw, is just usually pretty clean, but right now I've got, I keep a lot of like my anatomy books here. So like I love Masters of Anatomy, their books. I've got those here usually when I'm drawing. And then I'm a nerd who, obviously, if this is the game room too, I also have like controllers. I've got an Xbox controller over here on like a nice little stand. I do fighting games, so I actually have like they're called leverless controllers, so it's actually just all buttons. It's like a keyboard for fighting games essentially. Which I talked about Scotty Young earlier. I dripped this one out with all Scotty Young art. Hard to see on screen, but really like that one. That was a custom one I had made. But yeah, so having two setups would helps for cleanliness because I can keep things, you know, separated, but also then I don't have enough to work with. So I've got my iPad here. Again, so but Yeah, this side, these are Detolfs. So I've actually got a Detolf here, the IKEA one, and then over on the other side. So it goes Detolf, arcade cabinet, Detolf. And I'm an IKEA nerd. I actually live right down the street from an IKEA. Um, so the Detolfs are great. I actually have custom lighting in there too. They're because I don't like right, and those are the Billies, the other the bookcases, the giant one there, the IKEA Billy. I absolutely love IKEA stuff, and it just works. But in the other room, so in the office and downstairs, we have they're called Vitzjo. So it's kind of like a Detolf, but imagine it's a little wider, but there's no glass then. So it definitely gets dirtier because like I weatherproofed my Detolfs. I've got like the liner in there and stuff, so the door doesn't bring in any dust. The Vitzjos are just imagine like metal frames with glass shelves. So you can fit more because they're open, because I've got like stuff hanging off a little bit. Whereas the Detolf is very organized, very, very clean. Which in a room like this, I'd rather have clean, honestly, than too crazy because there's already a lot going on in this room. Okay, so this is a horrible example of trying to draw. Like I said, man, Monday mornings are sometimes the worst when I'm trying to get back in the swing of drawing. But the point was just to illustrate the structure of the face, right? And I think that still kind of holds true, even though this looks like a hot garbage fire. Um, just the idea that like most people can be broken down no matter what they're drawing. You can still break down the Loomis method with however they're doing it because it's just a general construction form of the human head, right? What kind of stuff do you put in Hamilton's your Detolfs? Like, do you have specific vibes, or do you just have a lot of different stuff on display in there? I know I'm super anal with where and how I organize my shelves, at least. So I've got like behind me on the Detolf in camera, like on in view, it's like each shelf has its own, like the one is my 3-0 Power Rangers, and then below that are my Mondo, can't really see, Mondo He-Man. It's a figures collectibles rated Colossus. Okay, I have a vintage stuff from my childhood, and they're like a Mega. Okay, the 12. Okay, Bionic Man toy, Force 5 Space. Nice. So yeah, I have, we have different spots for like those are like old school stuff, right? Like the old vintage things. We've got in our house, we've got like a spot for each of that kind of energy. So we've got one specific shelf that we refer to our like throwback shelf down in the basement. Um, and that's where like a lot of those kind of things live. Here are more of my like generally like, oh, see, luckily my partner, she is almost as big of a nerd as me at times, and so she does like Lego and Disney stuff, but she loves, like, I've gotten her into He-Man. So like I've got, if we look behind me here, I always forget because the camera's flipped. So over there is She-Ra and Orko. Orko has actually gotten, because I know how much she loves Orko. That became like her character because we started watching the new Masters of the Universe stuff together because she knows how much I liked it, and she fell in love with Orko as a character. So then like I got the Mondo Orko, who came with the classics small Orkos too that went on her shelf. That is literally an all Orko shelf. But it's funny you mentioned the Colossus stuff too. I don't know if you can see, it's hard. Oh my gosh, I'm always gonna forget the angle. That's the I have a Colossus down there. Actually, you can't really see from this angle, but it's those are all Marvel Legends on this one, and it's the Marvel Legends HasLab Sentinel, and then all of like just a bunch of different X-Men I grabbed to throw in there that they're fighting him and stuff. But yeah, I took out the bottom shelf to make room for that Sentinel because it's massive. Another one has Hulk, Batman, Japanese import figures with okay, Bubblegum Crisis and stuff like that. Cool. Track superhero Japanese. Okay, so a good mix of stuff from like 80s energy of American science fiction, superhero, and then anime inspired, which is pretty much you could argue my vibes around here too. Like, except we have also, like I said, a lot of Disney we throw in here. We are a Disney household. I grew up growing up, I went to Disney once a year, basically. Mind you, we live in Chicago, so it's not like it was like we lived close. But that was like our thing, was always going to Disney when we were younger. So I have an undying love for Disney stuff as well, and Ninja Turtles. So can't really see, but it's hard to tell. Like that's a giant Ninja Turtles blanket, but like the amount of Ninja Turtles figures in this house, insane. I have all but 2 of the available Colossus about the other 2 sideshow figures. But so dang, that's a lot of Colossus stuff. I only have smaller form figures. My favorite Colossus as a more of an action figure collector, not as much of a statue collector, for the longest time was literally just the Marvel Select Sentinel, or I'm sorry, Marvel Select Colossus that came out like that 10 years now, I think. That one, the Marvel Select one. I want to say he came with like a piece of the Danger Room as like a little Dio piece. I can't remember which ones are which that I even have now. It's too many. No, 32 plus. Yeah, that's a large collection of Colossus. Do you frame the stuff too? Like if you can see, I'm intense. I have to have every, like if you saw pictures of the house, it's just frames everywhere, like all gallery art, and I'm very particular of like, oh no, if it's something I like, it needs a frame. Like things don't go on the wall unless they're nicely framed and organized. Mm, just keeping them in the cabinet. That's fair. I'm I'm weird in my mind. I'm like, if I buy a thing, I want to show off the thing. Like I want it out for the world to see. I get too excited. Like in our basement, we've got so many boxes of figures and stuff too, and different things that it kills me that I don't have them out. Ooh, that's cool. See, those talk about pricey things too. Like when you're working in scale like that, those usually have that wow factor for sure. Because not only are they, like you said, it'll show off and people kind of like jaw drop moment, but also they're pricey. Like if you frame that stuff too, whew, big frames, that's a lot of money we're working with. That's why I usually stick to, I like at conventions and artist stuff where you're like, oh, it's at most like 12 by 18. Like I don't have, I've got like 18 by 24s and stuff like that. There's a huge Scotty Young piece above frame right here that you can't see, but like generally I stick to the smaller ones because they're easier and much cheaper to frame. And then I'm a weirdo who likes to have, like, as you can see, like the office and game room are both just gallery walls, like just super, super intense. Whereas then downstairs is a little little cleaner for when people are over, so it's not like uh, like too much information for people to process, you know? Huge poster that was comprised of many comic covers. I don't know why that's censored. Do I have a censor thing on? Weird. I wonder what Twitch read as being a gotcha. A frame would be too heavy for how big it is. That makes sense. A frame can't even handle it. You don't even know how heavy this is. Yeah, it doesn't help too that like we thank you, thank you. This is not quite a good grasp of what I draw. This is again, my Monday morning streams are usually the roughest for sure. Um, but you know, sometimes you gotta just warm up and get back in the swing, especially when I'm trying to explain what I'm doing in the moment. It usually gets kind of wonky. But but thank you. I appreciate it. Um like I said, today we were just kind of breaking down like heads and just trying to like just look at simplifying things because sometimes we all get lost in our drawings when we're doing stuff and sometimes it's nice just to go back to the basics and refresh ourselves of like why things look the way they look, you know? So again, in this instance, we were talking here that like she's looking pretty straightforward, this character, right? So we get our guidelines in, we're doing Loomis method, but here 90%. Okay, yeah, our faces and okay, you do more caricature stuff. That stuff's hard, man. I can't drawing caricatures throws me off. Like I'm a person of rules and caricatures are all about like pushing those rules. You know what I mean? Like really breaking what your brain is thinking. And I originally actually I went to school for biology. I was going to go and when all my friends were applying for med school, I actually applied for my master's program in animation instead. Because I decided throughout my life, I realized I no longer wanted to do science, that art was truly what I loved, but it doesn't change the fact that like I still have that like scientific way of looking at things of a brain because that's just how my brain functions, you know. We all have our own like little quirks, right? So if we say this is brow line, let's say this is chin, halfway through we'll say his nose. This distance up here will be brow. Again, it gets super cluttered when we're looking at a shape like this, where clearly his face has been drawn is very longer, right? It's deeper than the average face that we're trying to draw. So like I said, everything can be stylized, everything can be pushed, especially in the case with Hamilton's here talking about caricatures and stuff. That stuff is always about breaking the rules and stretching pieces to be all crazy. But again, here we talk to just like the bottom of the circle is generally where the mouth would lie. And I'm not trying to show how to draw these faces, right? I'm not drawing them exactly the way these artists have been drawing them necessarily. It's more so just to illustrate that like it works, right? That the Loomis method can be applied and it makes sense when you start breaking down and analyzing how faces are formed, even in other people's styles, even in other, you know, whatever way you want to make your mark, it still kind of follows these rules that govern it, right? Her hair goes really far back. I was started in high school drawing portraits, and then 32 years ago, I was just goofing around drawing myself as Colossus as a con, and someone saw me doing it. They asked how much, and I started drawing them. By the time I was done, I had a line, and the kid's dad bought all the stuff I was selling and said, "You should draw these instead of selling all that stuff." I'm still doing it. Yeah, that's dope. I remember, was it the first time I was approached for someone to buy something from me was, so during my master's program, lived in the city, but family lived out in Indiana. And so I would drive down to Indiana to visit them, right, from Chicago. However, I was like, one time I was like, I don't like driving, right? I'm not someone who likes to drive. If you tell me we got to drive 3 hours, I'd say, I don't want to. Like, I'm terrible. And so, right. And so I was actually in a car accident many, many moons ago. And so my collarbone is actually not lined up anymore. The sternoclavicular joint is shifted and damaged. So my collarbones are actually like this. So my right collarbone is like almost an entire inch higher than the other. And so if you notice when I'm drawing, I'm always shifting and fidgeting because my collarbone starts locking up if I hold a position too long. And so you can imagine driving is not not great for it, to say the least. But so one time I was like, you know what? I know there's a train, right? I can take, I think it was, I don't remember what exactly train it was, but it went to like Indianapolis, which wasn't necessarily by family, but it was close enough that I was like, okay, what if we do this? I take the train in, maybe I don't have to drive. It'll be easy. It's not like I need my car when I'm visiting family because it's not, I'm just visiting them. I don't need to drive anywhere. They're, just with them. Um, and I remember sitting on we got like, it was like an overflow. The train was too packed, and so they actually opened up the back dining car. And in the back dining car then it was just, excuse me, booths, right? Like just booths as if people were sitting and eating, almost like dinery style, right? And I just sat there and started drawing, and I didn't care. Like I was like, oh cool, I've got time to just relax and draw. It was like a late one. It was, I want to say like 8 or 9, not like crazy late, but it was darker. I was getting like just chilling. And so I was like, all right, I grabbed one of my sketchbooks. This was pre-iPad for me, right? Like way pre-iPad. As I'm sure you understand drawing for as long as you've been too. Like we didn't always have those tools, right? So I just had my sketchbook with me, and I pulled out the sketchbook and I started drawing. And I remember like I had they're like teenager-ish. I don't know. I'm horrible at gauging ages. Probably like 18, I don't know, 19. And some kid, they saw me and they're like, yo. Okay, so yeah, 58, you definitely know. I'm mid 30s, so I feel like that you definitely understand that more than I do even. But they saw me drawing and they were like, "Hey, can you draw me something?" They're like, I'll pay you, I'll pay you, I'll pay you." And I was just sitting here like half asleep, right? Like had a long, because I remember I went after work. So I hopped on the train because I worked in the city. I remember getting on the train after work, tired, just sketching out whatever, right? I'm like, yeah, cool, 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 whatever. And the kid approached me and they're like, "Can you draw me Sailor Moon?" And I was like, I mean, I don't know if I've ever drawn Sailor Moon in my life, right? And this isn't when we had my phone. Oh God, that was way too big. I feel like now you can pull up reference so easily on all of our smartphones and stuff, but I also didn't have like a crazy smartphone to work with either. So I was like, I don't remember what Sailor Moon looks like. Like, and like luckily, like obviously the phone had some internet, but it wasn't like smartphones of today. But I pulled up like a rough image just to kind of remind myself what the heck Sailor Moon even looked like. And I started drawing it, and I like did like a rough ink of it then because I had like whatever tools I had at the time, right? So I sketched it and did like a really quick inking of it. And it was one where like, when you look at it and you're like, that looks like doo-doo water. Like I did it and I was like, I am so sorry. This train is bumpy. I couldn't even remember what Sailor Moon looked like. I am like pull out all the excuses in your own head. Where like I had pizza in my eye. The moon was hitting weird, like all these weird excuses, but they absolutely loved it. They're like, "This is the greatest thing. I'm going to put this on my wall." And it was just funny being like, I thought that looked like crap, but they loved it. And that's what's an interesting thing, that like I feel like we all struggle with that we are our hardest critic always, right? We're always going to look at anything we do with a harsher eye than any other human, probably. Usage on motorcycles and dune buggies. See, I can't. Hard surface stuff is not. So I'm actually professionally a 3D artist. So I've worked with video games. I do modeling and sculpting and stuff like that. I've done environments. I've done characters and stuff like that. However, my least favorite thing to even sculpt is hard surface stuff. So like if I had to like, because I had to do like in one of the levels, I remember we had like a beat up pickup truck, and I remember modeling that pickup truck, and I was just like, ugh, hard surface is gross. But obviously I did it and it looked cool, and then I was fine. But that is, yeah, not my forte. Yeah, you still hate it too, but well, yeah, if you're doing it, you'll if requested, I guess that makes sense. Like I was saying with mine, where like I don't like doing it, but if that's what the job if that's what the job asks for or calls for in the moment, then game on, you know? But yeah, there's something about hard surface stuff that just, and it's like, honestly, even doing 3D modeling, hard surface stuff on paper isn't like that. It's not super difficult. It's just more tedious. And I think that's what gets me, because I do follow rules and I do like that kind of stuff, but I also get bored with tedium with that kind of drawing or that kind of modeling and stuff like that. I like having more looser of an approach. So again, not looking like the most amazing face here, but just trying to showcase what I was talking about with, like, again, I'm sure as you know, to Hamilton, just the Loomis method, and the idea of structure of a face and how these general rules can apply to whatever. Like, so in this instance, this character's head is a little more stretched than even their original drawing. But like, even if you're stretching shapes, making it kind of weird, everything still kind of follows the rules enough. And so helping understand those rules will help you break them. So there's another quick rough in of T.M. Wilson's stuff here. Loomis is king. Yes, I've got multiple Loomis books, and that's what I pulled up earlier and was showcasing stream to, just the different pieces and stuff of like his Loomis method from, oh gosh, what is it? I already forgot the name of the book. Penciling is fun, or fun with a pencil, yeah. I am on social media. I basically, so I have Instagram. I don't really like using Instagram anymore because it's not as good as it used to be, and the billionaire nonsense of how these people are using their social media is not my favorite. But I do use Instagram. That one, unfortunately, is Britton_draws, but everywhere else, I am just BrittonDraws. BrittonDraws. So like I've been trying to use more Blue Sky. I'm obviously here on Twitch. I've started doing streams. Thanks. Yeah, I'd say I think on here on stream I've got a link to the Instagram, where that's probably the easiest way to see some of my later pieces. I don't really post my 3D professional work ever, which is something I probably need to do, just to have some stuff up to showcase that too. But yeah, I started now 2 YouTube pages, and the one page was like Let's Plays at first, like it's just me playing video games like a nerd. But the goal now is, now that I've been taking this a little more seriously this year, is I want my BrittonDraws page, the YouTube page, is going to be about appreciating art, because I feel like so many people play video games and do these things, but like they don't stop and appreciate the beauty that these games or these comics or these movies have, right? And I wanted to make a page where I'm going to start breaking down and analyzing cool stuff to help people better appreciate making art, right? Appreciate the art of the craft, if you will, right? And then my other account is BrittonDraws Art Academy, there where the plan there, again, this is all pretty new. I appreciate it. Yeah, I try. So basically the way I've set up my schedule is that if it's in the morning, I'm making art. If it's not in the morning, I'm playing a game if I'm streaming, right? But I've been trying to stick to more art streams than game, because I know that it's a very different vibe. And I know I usually have a hard time watching some people play games too. It just depends on if I vibe with the person, you know? But so they are separate. And so YouTube, the goal is not to put any like gaming content on YouTube necessarily. It's just on Twitch in the afternoon. Sometimes I'll play games. But otherwise it'll be art as much as I can. And, but yeah, so hopefully the YouTube stuff in this month now, the plan is to, start that up more and actually hit the ground running with that stuff. So hopefully I've got some cool stuff. I've got some fun ideas. Thank you. Yeah, there's both YouTube channels. The one is me just playing games right now, it looks like, but that's just when I first started the page and I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? And sometimes when we're starting off with doing new endeavors, you kind of like, you flounder a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? I want to focus on art. And so, like I said, I've got, being a Marvel person, Hamiltons, I'm sure you're aware of Marvel Rivals out right now. That game is blowing up, right? Absolutely huge right now. And what I wanted to do with the BrittonDraws channel, for example, is I've got breakdowns already lined up. I've got files all cut up and comic books all imaged and ready that like I want to break down, because a lot of them have cool skins. So as a comic artist, I'm sure you understand going to cons and stuff. All of those things. Okay, Call of Duty and some Final Fantasy 13 or 12, sorry. I can't read Roman numerals from far away at first glance. Or 17. Holy I can't read Roman numerals at all apparently when I'm quick glancing. As soon as right before he said 17, I was like, that's 17. That's not the right one, I'm thinking. Yeah, for sure. I could never, I've tried to get into MMOs, but usually not my jam. But yeah, so like on the BrittonDraws primary channel, I've got a couple breakdowns already lined up that I'm thinking of and starting to work on for like calling it lore and design. So the idea of like Marvel Rivals. So I did a piece here on the iPad I can show, like I was drawing Malice, right? Malice is an extremely unique character that like in Marvel Rivals, people see this and they go, ooh, sexy girl with big butt, right? But knowing the comic history is actually pretty interesting. And knowing then the comic visuals and how it's interpreted to the game is also just as interesting. So I was going to do a series of lore and design where I break down the first half is actually the lore, right? Where did this character come from? How did Malice form? You know, I'm sure you're aware, but like she formed from the hate monger or whatever, and being a vessel of hatred within her, and how she is manifested multiple times throughout the series and throughout her different runs, whether it's been in the comics or then even in the cartoons and stuff, in the Fantastic Four cartoon, and how the iconic, like he literally Fantastic slaps her to get her out of it and be like, Susan, shut up, like terrible. But like, that's an interesting idea of where that came from. And so I wanted to talk about like where it came from, what the design in the game looks like. So then break down the in-game designs and then kind of compare and contrast from an artist perspective. Where did they pull the inspiration? How did they change that and stuff like that? So Malice is a prime example of like the first one I was working on right now. But I wanted to do that with a bunch of other things, right? Or even like House of M, right? The Magneto piece here from House of M, amazing series, right? I loved that run. But again, most people playing Marvel Rivals go, ooh, cool, fancy Magneto, right? But it's cool to actually show the actual Magnus behind it. Um, so that's what's going to go on the YouTube. Oh, my Jeffs that you saw. Thank you. I did that one. That was my quick watercolor Jeff, and these were like me just doing a quick couple studies of like comic booky Jeff. But then the BrittonDraws Art Academy is actually where all of these streams live. So all of these streams go on BrittonDraws Art Academy as, you know, multi-streaming. And then that's where I want to do like, so if BrittonDraws is appreciating art, BrittonDraws Art Academy is going to be like learning art, right? So I'll do more of like educational breakdowns and stuff. Because obviously people who play the game and want to know about the characters aren't necessarily the people who want to learn to make those characters. But if there is overflow, you know, I'm sure there's some overlap. But you can see here, I guess, as we're talking, just some random crap that I've done lately. I'm a big fighting game fan, so I've got like a bunch of Street Fighter stuff here. And well, good. I appreciate you being along for the ride. But then, yeah, all my Disney stuff. I've been doing a couple Disney things too, which are fun. This one that I never posted, I need to finish him. He was close. Merlin and Archimedes. Oh yeah, speaking of, yeah, my Colossus, right? I had a Colossus down here. Just a very basic, nothing crazy, but yeah, Colossus is one of my favorites. I love Colossus and Magic. Like those are just such a good such good characters, and I feel like they're underappreciated in most comic realms. Like I guess comic books appreciate them, but I feel like the new media with like the MCU and all these things, I'm like, I need more love for my mutants. Like, I need them. Yeah, X-Men are by far and large like my absolute favorite. Like comic book anything. It's always been X-Men since I grew up. Like obviously I grew up in more of the 90s, and so I had the original animated series was my absolute favorite thing. And then now the new X-Men 97 was awesome because then I got to not only see more X-Men, which is always great, but I also was able to get my girlfriend to watch with me then, right? So then now she likes X-Men more than she ever did because now we watched the thing together, which is pretty cool. To the point where she, when we talked about figures, to the point that she literally one day was like, hey, I did a thing. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, in the parking lot. Remember you had mentioned that like those Mondo figures were going up? And I was like, yeah, I wasn't going to get any of the new animated series Mondo. We already spent a pretty penny because I've got the Battle Cat and Panther along with He-Man and Skeletor on them in the office. The big Mondo 1/6 scale, like actual house cat size. And she's like, I pre-ordered the Gambit and Rogue because she absolutely loved the Gambit and Rogue relationship in 97 because that was new to her. And so we now have downstairs, I think I might have posted a picture of that on the Blue Sky actually, of the Mondo Gambit and Rogue. And she jokes that those are hers. Those are her figures. She got those. We always joke that, you know, obviously everything's ours, but like those were the ones that she wanted. So I was super happy the idea that like X-Men 97 helped like kind of the same energy that the new Masters of the Universe did, right? Like it helps you get new people in. And that's the best thing, right? Getting new people into something you already love, like a new entry point is always a great thing. I would hope she's still the best, even though she's not a nerd. I'm sure you guys share plenty of other things together. And it's nice too that like as the world expands, yes, unfortunately the world is, there's a show called Evil, and unfortunately the idea that like evil can now communicate and blah 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 blah. Like the idea is the more we become interconnected as a people, but also in the same vein, we can also like this. Like I'm talking to you now, we both have a common interest and we can talk to each other about it. And so it's easier to find people. So even if like maybe your significant other or whoever, oh wow, congratulations. Wow, 25th anniversary. That's a good chunk of time. But yeah, no, the idea that like we all can find each other, right? All our common interests, all of these things still we can find everybody that we still want to have, share these experiences with, share information with, or gush over X-Men about, like that is one of the good things of technology. I appreciate that it brings, people together. So like even if you may not have a lot of people in your life who like certain things that you like, you sure as hell can find it on the internet, somebody else who likes it too, and you can vibe with them. But yeah, 25 years, that is impressive. That's a good chunk of time. I've been with my girlfriend now for 4 years. Um, the joke is that okay, 100% friends are nerds. Yeah, that's yeah. All of my buddies are goobers. We're all just nerds left and right. I love it too because like one of my buddies that I met. So I'm a big gym goer. I'm huge into fitness, and like one of my buddies I met was at the gym that I talk to regularly now. He's a good kid. He's younger, but he's a good kid, and it was just funny because like I was sitting there watching Street Fighter actually, like literally just sitting there. I had like some Street Fighter content on my phone while I was lifting the one day. I had it on. It was just playing, like only half paying attention, obviously, because I'm lifting. And he like taps me when I finished the one set. He like taps my shoulder. He's like, "Yo, man, you watching Street Fighter?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I am." Like this, like I love Street Fighter. Like that is one of my like core memories as a kid was like playing Street Fighter with my dad on the computer. Like he had Street Fighter 2 on PC, and I remember loving playing that with him. And then in Disney, we always went, like I said, and they had X-Men versus Street Fighter. So like I'm a Street Fighter fan. But it was just funny the idea that like even at the gym, I started bonding over Street Fighter with a dude at the gym who's now a good friend of mine. Like it's just pretty cool how we we all find each other in weird ways, right? Friends can make friends wherever. And then usually when you see somebody else doing that thing you like, which is why I love wearing, like clothes or different things like that that kind of show off like, yeah, I'm a nerd. Like if you would like to talk about a nerdy thing in public and you see me, go ahead and approach me. I'm cool. I'm cool with that. Like always down to make new friends and chat about nerdy things. Oh yeah, I have too many t-shirts. I've got like boxes and boxes and boxes of t-shirts in the basement. Nice. I don't think I have any character like I've got X-Men shirts, but I don't think I have any like specific character. You know what I mean? Like it's usually just like a hodgepodge, like a little collage of characters on my shirts for X-Men. I do have one hoodie. So it's a hoodie that my mom had gotten one day at like Marshall's or something. She randomly saw it and she's like, I thought of you. And it's super oversized, right? Like I'm like 5'10", 5'11", and average-ish muscular build. And she got this oversized hoodie, this massive hoodie. She's like, but it was something you would like, I thought. And it's just this old school Power Rangers hoodie, like the Mighty Morphin, right? And every time I've worn that hoodie, it doesn't matter where I've gone. Literally, every time I've worn that hoodie, I've gotten a compliment. Usually a dude's like, dude, that's dope. Every time. And my girlfriend, like we go to toy shows and stuff like that, and she'll try and theme up her outfit, do something cute, like do like not like full cosplay, but like bounding kind of similar vibes. And I remember the one time I wore my Power Rangers hoodie and she's like, how did you get multiple compliments and you're just wearing a damn hoodie? Where it's like she actually had like, a full on outfit vibe in. Where I was like, I just threw on a hoodie. It's cool though. It's a good hoodie. Oh, that's awesome that she was able to take your t-shirts and make a quilt. That's a super cute idea. I bet. I mean, um, my girlfriend knits and does that kind of stuff, so I bet she could do the same thing if we tried. Oh, pins are rough because like you can just get them wherever then, and it's dangerous because then in my head I get pins because they don't take up space, but then suddenly they take up space when you have 1,000 of them, right? Like it adds up quicker than not, which is fine, but also funny that like the whole point we started getting into pins was like, oh, when we go to conventions and go to art shows and stuff, even if we don't want to buy anything big, we can still get a pin, right? Like, oh, we'll just get a pin. But somehow that's escalated now to the point where I got into fig pins, which take up a lot of space. And whenever we go to Disney, we get pins and this and that, where it's like, oh no, 40 pounds of pins. I could see that. I mean, yeah, we've got the ones on Blue Sky that I've posted. That's like maybe a third ish of our pin collection that's out. And so it's, yeah, especially some of those pins, they get the, even just a pin or two are real heavy depending on the ones you get. Like I've got some that are got some weight to them. It is fun though too, because then it's nice that like pins for me became a thing that it's like, oh, then if somebody gets me a gift, or you know how sometimes like somebody wants to buy a little something or they think of you and stuff, it's like, oh, Britton likes pins. And it's usually like, I do, you're right. I've got a spot to put it too. Like if I get a new figure, I may not have a spot to put it, right? If I get a new book, I might not even have a spot to put it with how much bookshelf space is taken up, right? However, if I get a new pin, I probably got a spot. I can squeeze it. Probably. For now, I say that until all the boards are full and I no longer do have space. But for now, the idea is I've got it. She normally doesn't get you like nerd stuff, but one day she went to a comic shop and got advice with a sideshow Colossus bust. That's pretty dope. Pretty dope. Did you have a spot to put the bust when you got it? Did you have somewhere to put it? At least had a nice spot on a shelf. Nice, right on top of the detolf. Um, yeah, I mean, I used to, I was a sucker. So back in the day, my Blu-ray collection was like, obviously I had plenty of VHS growing up, but then as I got older, trying to collect DVDs and Blu-rays, Blockbuster used to run those like they were like buy two get two free and all these like crazy sales. Um, And so like I know I would always like have just such an exorbitant amount of like random DVDs and Blu-rays then. And then obviously when Blockbuster went out of business, those no longer occurred. But like I remember I had stocked up like so many because you're like, oh, it's a good deal. I'll get six of them for $10 and it's fine. And then like, what the hell am I even doing with all these? Ooh, I think I just had a delivery. So that's actually a funny little story. So I ordered, they are Mythic Legions. That's nice. It's just right there. Easy grasp to grab. I appreciate that. Now, speaking of figures, I had ordered they're Mythic Legions. They do, I don't know if for those who don't know, Mythic Legions are basically like fantasy figures that are like interchangeable. You can kind of like custom them. You can do all these things. They're pretty fun. I've got a good handful, but they made a Ninian infantry who's like a snake armor man thing. I don't know. Looked cool. And I really liked it. I love anthropomorphic characters like that in like a fantasy setting. And so I was all about it, but it was a Legion Con exclusive, blah, 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 blah. They finally put it up for normal sale then, which was great. Oh, that's a whole other, yeah, I've got so, like, honestly, that's a whole other thing. Like, it's weird when you have so many varied interests, right? Like, but they all kind of revolve around just, like, nerdy culture stuff. But, like, yeah, that's a whole other ball game. I have so many, I've thought about that before, too, of, like, just doing figure content. But I feel like this sounds weird, and I don't want it to sound like, I think I have more to offer the world, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like I can put out more, like, I've done tutoring, I've done teaching, I've done these things. And so I like the idea of being able to put out into the world more, right? So as fun as that would be, I think it's better suited with what I can give, you know? But that would be fun. I follow, like, I don't know if you watch any toy stuff, but like Toy Bro or Dork Layer or Anthony's Customs or all these people that, you know, do these toy unboxings and reviews. They're fun. When I make dinner, I have a playlist on YouTube that's just called toy reviews. And whenever there's a new one, I just slap it on there. And when I cook dinner, we have like really big salads at night. I just randomly pick a new one to watch. And I just watch. I just listen and look at somebody opening up a toy as I make dinner every night. A custom sculpt. Some of those can turn out very hit or miss. I've seen some absolutely wonky ass ones in the past of customs, and then other ones where I'm like, holy crap, this is $1 million, right? Like, these are fantastic. With any art, I guess, is kind of how that works. I would hope so. I would hope so. You seemed proud of it. I would hope it would have been a super hit. Oh, see, I'm not a home chef. Like I said, as a fitness person, I eat chicken and rice and spinach. That's it. I use my Instant Pot like a fiend. I slap that crap in there. I make my basic chicken and broccoli, you know. I get my food groups in. My girlfriend always jokes that, like, if it has too much flavor, it's too much for me. It's like, no, I like flavor. I just competitive water volleyball. Huh. I don't know if I've ever engaged like watching water volleyball. That sounds interesting. So here, just a heads up, I switched over to Peach Momoko now. So again, all I'm doing, like I said, is just kind of blocking in, trying to kind of vibe with what they look like, but just showing that Loomis method and how these basic approaches of constructing the face can kind of apply to anything. So here's Peaches here, gonna do just a little more like rounded shapes with hers as she does, but still just the idea of breaking that in. All good, all good. No, it's definitely a balance of because yeah, it's hard when I start nerding out too. Like, I just want to keep going. Like, so I totally get it. It's just the same as regular volleyball. I mean, I figured it was the same, just in a pool. But yeah. So if we got brow line, let's say this is where her chin is. Look at about half ish. Let's say there would be nose. mouth would be around, right? More of a round circle like this. Would be kind of around starting there. And then the eye line would be just a little under. And we can kind of fill all these things in. You moved to, oh man, well, I am in Chicago. And honestly, that at least sounds great to me, the idea of Florida. Because so one of my best friends lives in Florida, actually. And I always give them shit because they're like, they'll complain about weather or something like that. And then I'll be like, dude, it was -20 yesterday. Like, like, or something ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, you can't even talk to me about weather. Like, so I'm sure I mean, but Florida's got, I know they've got MegaCon and a couple other pretty cool stuff down there in Florida, right? So it's not like you are not without a nerd culture. And I know there's a pretty good comic shop that I can't remember. He said it's a pretty big chain down there. I'm completely blanking on the name that Florida's got for their comic shop, but I know he likes that comic shop. He's a big fan. He likes the people. He likes the stores. So again, even here, if we look at, even if we were to divide this head like he does, right? We cut off our block of cheese, right? Flattening it out this way. It still holds true. Like we said, that if we draw that center line on this side, and this is like the cross section, this is pretty much where the ear goes, right? And that's exactly where they have their ear. So even in pushed stylization, these rules still pretty much apply. It's just a matter of looking a little different. Going to MegaCon as a fan, first time, not as as the table artist, and applied for Tampa, Soren Okula. That's about 40 minutes. Okay, but you stopped. I mean, yeah, collecting comics, if you, especially for how long you've been doing it, I'm sure that becomes a very unruly thing to collect at this point. You know, like there's just too much content out there over the years now that I can see that keeping that collection up is difficult. I kind of do. I limit my comic intake too, because I'm a big trade paperback person because it's just more organized. So like behind me on the shelves below and in the other room are a lot of trade paperbacks. And then I've got like in the closet some long boxes and stuff of comics, but I try and be a little bit more like, hey, if I know I really want to support this one, I'm going to buy the individuals. But like the new Batman, right? They've got the Absolute Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. I'm getting Absolute Batman, but I'm not going to get into Superman and Wonder Woman right now just because I know that'll be a trade paperback and I don't got the space for that. But I want to support one of them, you know, so I'm getting the individuals of Batman. But it definitely adds up. That is for sure. Yeah, trade paperbacks are just so much easier, and I like trade paperbacks then too because a lot of times they'll do collected works then in the back or something with like all the covers, right? So like you don't get to see all the covers that you're working with half the time. You get the cover you got if you can get the variant you like or this or that. Whereas I love the trade paperbacks usually have some sort of little collection of the covers or different things like that. So I feel like they definitely have more bang for the buck, but also then obviously you don't get to support it as it's being made. So it's a give and take. So you had 15 long boxes. That makes, honestly, that sounds tame compared to some people I've seen. Like here in Chicago, I'm in like different toy groups and stuff here in the city. And some of the people post some of their stuff and I'm just like, goodness, absolute gracious. Like basement is filled, right? Or something like that of just these long boxes filled with comics. But I mean, we all do what we like, you know? Can't knock anything. If you want 5 million long boxes full of comics and that brings you joy, dope. It's not hurting anybody. If anything, it's helping people. So Cool, cool, cool with me. You mean like totally? So you sold a lot of stuff. I get that. So I lived up north a ways, and when COVID hit, actually, I wanted to move back down here to Chicago to be closer with family. Like with COVID, everything going on, it was a mess, and everyone didn't know what the hell was going on. So the studio I was working at the time had like laid off a crap ton of us. Right, we had gone from working from home, right? When COVID hit, we all started working from home, but unfortunately, the company was a casino game company. So when COVID hit, what do you think happened to the casino industry? Nobody was You can't go to a casino. They were shut down. Like, so the industry kind of pooped out with that part. And so I had moved, but in moving, I was like, you know what? I need to save more money. I don't need to move as much stuff. I got to start selling this, right? I need to sell all this stuff. And so I sold so much stuff. And it was good, right? It was good to purge a lot of stuff and get rid of things and recoup like a lot of things I made money on. Like they were good investments in that sense, right? But that doesn't change the fact that it kind of sucks, right? Some of the stuff when you decide to sell, you're like, I bet this is fine. But then it's always the real test is like years later, do you miss it? And unfortunately, one of the first like expensive. Oh wow, that's nice that it was an easy. Yeah, for me, selling stuff is always a pain in the butt. So if you could sell it all in one go, or at least easily to people with knowing somebody, that is a godsend for sure. But one of the very first things that I bought that was expensive, right? Like I've always been a collector. I've always got all my things, but like usually it was like small things. The first like quote unquote to me at the time that was expensive was an SH Figure Arts Super Saiyan Broly from Dragon Ball Z. As a kid, as a little kid, Broly was like the coolest character to me. I always loved the big, strong characters. And so Broly being a giant, beefy man, I was like, I need to get this. He was my favorite. He was like my profile name when I was younger, always. Like I always had Broly in my name. Like that was my jam. And so when that was the very first one they ever made was of Broly. And I was like, oh, I need it. I absolutely need it. But that's when I was getting my master's full time, working full time, commuting full time, essentially, how much I was going around. So, like, I was like, I should not be spending like $130 or whatever it was on a figure, which now, unfortunately, I spend more than that. I mentioned the Mondo stuff. The Mondo stuff alone is like $120. But, like, that was the first one to break the seal, right? Where I was like, oh, that's a lot of money, but I want it. And so I got it, and I remember I was so excited. Like I had pre-ordered that thing when it came in. I did like a whole little like photo shoot with like I had like a Piccolo and a Goku, and they were like breaking out. It was like the idea that like I did like a little series as if they saw him land as a box and like he opened up and was like throwing them around and stuff. I had a blast, and that figure was like super special to me. But then when I was selling everything in Minnesota, I was like, you know what? I can just lump all of this Dragon Ball stuff. That Broly figure had gone up in value drastically because they've made more Broly figures, but not that one. And that was the first one from many moons back. So like it still held value. And I was like, I need to sell it all, right? I need to just sell it all. And then now I have literally behind me right here. You can't super see it, but I call it my bodybuilding shelf. It's just beefy characters. It's anybody that looks like they could be a bodybuilder. So like I've got Goro from Mortal Kombat up there. I've got Zangief from Street Fighter. I've got a She-Hulk. I've got a couple Hulks up there. I've got a whole slew of things. I've got the full power Frieza. I've got a little Looney Tunes Bugs Bunny that one of my buddies also sent me, just like the the Frieza where he's like all beefy. And I was like, my gosh, that Broly would look perfect on this shelf. And I miss that one, right? Because that had sentimental value, that one. It was special. But I had to get rid of it because it just made sense at the time. And lo and behold, Figuarts did a poll where they voted for one figure for them to reissue over the past like 20 years. And that Broly won. And they put that Broly back up now for pre-order. And I was like, man, I do not need to buy this, but also I need to buy this. Like, it's cheaper. I'm paying less than I sold it for, I think at this point, if I recall correctly, even how much I sold it for. So it's like, oh boy, I need that. And so I felt like such a dork buying something that I had already sold, right? This was a remake of the thing a reprinting of the thing I had already sold, but that was one of the few things that I found that after selling it, I wish I had kept it. Oh, I agree. Life is too short, right? Like we just need to enjoy the things that when we can. But when you lose your job, the studio closes down and you're about to move, panic kind of sets in too in terms of trying to sell stuff. So that was definitely a part of it, wanting to just kind of simplify and get some money. But so I usually don't draw. So Peach does a lot of like round shapes. Like she's a very rounded, soft character artist, the way she does stuff. I struggle drawing super round shapes like this. So as you can see, I've been like noodling back and forth because my brain just is not like, I'm trying to, again, not draw exactly what they draw, but I'm at least trying to imitate the style, get the energy, and then focus on the head construction. But like, whew, drawing these super round shapes, I don't know why. Again, I'm a very angular, like more, not scientific, but like analytical way of drawing. And so like I usually end up drawing very hard edges. Like trying to get this is very weird for me. And again, I'll blame it on Mondays. Mondays, my drawing is always, Monday drawings are worst drawing. So she does that thing with the nose where like there's no bridge. It's just an illusion of the nostril, like boop, and then like a hint at the other knot, like the edge. That's it. Again, I like doing that, but again, I usually do like a harder edge for that kind of work. So her eyes go down pretty low, like they have a more of an oval there. But again, as we're seeing, like the functional lines that we had put in, the breakdowns were, this was brow, right? And that's end up where brow still is. This was the eye line, right? And that's right where the eye's sitting. This was the nose, right where the nose is sitting. We had broken down where the ear would be placed. Like, even though these styles are very different, the structure of the head still remains, right? Doesn't really break too much. Coliseum Comics. Is that the one? Sorry, my brain just randomly popped in. I was trying to this whole time like back burner my brain of like what the comic shop is in Florida that my friend likes. I think that's the name of it. I always feel like even if I'm not doing value on a thing, when I do a nose where it doesn't have any sort of ridge, I feel like I have to add something like this, right? That like quick little shadow to denote where the plane shifts exist. Ah. So I do my breaks every time, every hour. It's 12:37. It's not a full break, it's a chocolate break. So if you don't know, Dove dark chocolates are the greatest thing ever. They're the perfect little like, ooh, a piece of candy. Because when I'm sitting here streaming, I'll have breakfast and I don't have lunch until like 2 o'clock. And so I found having a little bit of chocolate every hour, dark chocolate. I'm not a big milk chocolate fan, but give me that dark chocolate, give me a little bite. It holds me over. It gets the job done. It gives my creative juices flowing with my chocolate. Yeah, oh no. You stopped sugar weeks ago, and now if you eat it, you get sluggish. I would die. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could cut out sugar. Like, quite literally, my diet is just sugar. Like, I mentioned it's super healthy, right? Like, I love my proteins. Like, I get good balance of my proteins, carbs, the right starches, the right kind of veggies. There. It's a little different. The age, factors into the body, sure. I'm just saying, I don't want a picture in 20, 30 years me not having sugar. Can't do it. Like, even so, my morning breakfast is lazy most of the time now. It's just protein bars, like heavy protein, not like generic protein bars, like good amount of protein, like bodybuildery kind of protein bars. And then for lunch, well, and then my snacks are chocolate because I'm a gremlin and I need my chocolate. But then my lunch is a protein mix that I make. So it is an extreme milk chocolate protein that I really like. I've gone through 1,000 different protein powders in the years, and this is my favorite one. And I take my protein powder and I mix it with PB2, so it's like a ground peanuts essentially. It's what you could make like a less intense version of peanut butter than out of. Um, and so I mix those two together. I pour in some almond milk, vanilla almond milk. And then in the almond milk, in this big like mixture of proteiny peanut buttery ness that's just end up being, I want to say it ends up like 45 grams of protein just for this thing. Then I put in frozen bananas I have in the freezer. I cut up every week. I take out my frozen bananas, plop them in there, and there's my sugary, like it feels sugary. It's not even that much sugar, but it feels sugary, right? Because I like all of those flavors together. I'm a sucker. Also started eating really healthy. Wife wants to get healthier and lose weight, and I can make healthy food taste great. So started the same eating plan. That makes sense. Pick up some protein powder too. I was a bodybuilder in the 20s, so that stuff is like second nature to me. Nice. We have a machine that makes soft serve out of frozen bananas. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. A machine that makes soft serve out of frozen fruits. I would, that would be dangerous. Yo nanas. I will definitely look that up when I get off of stream and probably share it with my girlfriend, and we will investigate. Is it pretty easy to use? Okay, just put the fruit in and push down. That sounds up my alley of effort to make stuff. Because like I said, I'm a big fan of just an instant pot. I prep the food and I just throw it in and say, cook it, please. Banana is the creamy part, and other fruits add flavor, so it has an iced cream texture. Nice. I know. We used to try and make like a proteiny ice cream where you take can't remember what it was. It was like some sort of, can't remember what agent it was. Like you mix in, like I make my normal protein mix, but then you kind of like mix in some sort of powder. I'm completely blanking on what it was. And then you would basically, it would like fluff it up, but then you just throw it in the freezer and it would come out and it was like, I mean, it was like healthy ice cream then, right? But same idea. So we tried stuff like that in the past. So I'd definitely be down for a fruited version of that too. Okay, so you said Hamilton's, you use Procreate, right? So did you, I just found this out literally like a week ago that these little tab things, right? These little guys here, I literally never knew what they were. I'd seen some artists have them before and I didn't even think twice of what it was, right? I was like, weird, they've got some stuff on there. And then finally I was like, what the hell are those actually? And I never realized you can just hard lock essentially like sizes. So the fact that you can just click on a size then so you can keep it more consistent. Like for my eraser, I like having a big one, a medium sized one, and a small one. And I don't have to like slide around. I can just tap exactly these landmarks. And I never knew that existed. I've been using Procreate for like 7 years or something. Never knew that existed. I don't know if that was a new thing, but I'd never realized you can literally just click the plus sign and now you can lock in. Click on the slider. Oh, you mean just like this, like where like the slow changes? Yeah, this is what I would normally do, is like this. But I feel like this becomes messy. Like I just want to tap it and be like, boom, done. Like, consistent so I can like lock in. I never knew that was a thing. So like my brushes now, when I'm doing like really thin stuff with my sketches, I've got the thin. Wait, wait. So you say click on the space the slider is in and drag right. Oh, I see what you're saying. So it like slowly goes up, just a small increment then, like super small. Didn't know that either. Apparently, I just click on the brushes and I draw. I just was always like, I'm a man of simple things, apparently. Just, I click on brush, I draw. It's funny now learning more, the more I'm actually using, like, the more I talk about the software and do stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm realizing more pieces to it kind of thing, Because like I said, for work, I've always done 3D work and then always used the just see, always learning something new. But I've always done, more of the Adobe products. But Adobe's been doing some shady stuff with how they're stealing art and their AI stuff right now. So I've been steering away from Adobe products if I can, at least. So Procreate is. Oh, nice. Very similar then for sure. Yeah, I got Procreate and an iPad. I never liked Apple devices, right? I'm that person that's got my Android. I don't use an iPhone. I don't use that stuff. But one of my good friends one of my best friends got an iPad and they used it for drawing. And I was like, wait a second. What am I looking at? This is amazing. Like, what is this black magic you've created? Like, because I had, you know, I've got all my Cintiqs and stuff I've had in the past, but I've never used an iPad, like a small tablet like this for drawing. And I was like, this is wizards. Like, what kind of deal with the devil did you make? Because it just feels so good, right? Like something about drawing on the iPad just feels really good. I know I personally use the paper-like screen protector too, because I really like that extra little bit of grit. But the act of making a mark just feels really, really good on the iPad. Not that it doesn't on like the Cintiqs and stuff. Obviously, it feels great on a Cintiq in a different way. But there's something about being able to just grab the iPad and draw on the couch, draw on the recliner, go in the basement, go to someone's house, drive in, or, you know, I'm driving, someone else is driving, I'm not driving. Someone else is driving, I can sketch on the iPad. You know, there's something about this like portability that just feels freeing in a way. You're like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. Though also detrimental because then I'm the idiot who, when I've drawn in real life now, like on paper, I've literally tapped the paper before to undo. Like, how embarrassing is that? I tapped paper with my fingers thinking it could undo because that's just muscle memory to undo. Like, that's real bad. But, you know, I've been trying really hard to not undo as much. Ever since I was drawing on paper and I did that, I was like, you are an idiot, Britton. Don't undo things, just use the eraser and keep it more like natural feeling, because the more you undo, the more your brain trains yourself to undo. But yeah, like, right, you've done it too. Or try to resize an image. Yeah, there's these like easy shortcuts that our brain gets used to when we're doing 2D work now, or 3D work, whatever, just doing anything digitally, that it's so hard to break. Like, if this is the second nature of using it, then yeah, what I'm drawing on paper, this feels like I'm drawing on paper. So why wouldn't I undo or, you know, tap the screen? Oh, yeah. I'm glad I'm not the only one, because it is, everything becomes muscle memory. Like I was saying, how I play video games a lot and stuff, like it's muscle memory. Like I play fighting games, like you need the inputs as just muscle memory, right? If I'm doing a Hadoken, the quarter circle forward, that's muscle memory. I don't think about doing that. You just do it. And so that's kind of how this is. So one thing I always brag about digital work too is the liquify. And like right here's a prime example of like, if again, I'm just trying to draw it to get the Loomis method going. But like here, she actually would look better if I kind of pulled her face down a little. Boom, liquify, greatest tool ever. Can't do that in real life on paper. Which again, that makes me lazy, but it's fine. Okay, well, I've been sitting here on this cute little storm for a while. I could probably move off of this. The idea, you know, we can break it down again, though. Like I said, whole thing just kind of as an easy recap for those if they're just popping in, that like just looking at the Loomis method of how these faces are constructed and how it doesn't matter the artist, you can use that method and see that it applies to most ways of drawing the face. Whether you want to adopt it for your own use or not is fine, but it works. Because like here, let's grab red, right? So again, we drew this by drawing, oh my goodness, that is a fat brush. Ooh. Right, we drew our circle. And then we decided center line of circle, right? She's kind of looking down. And then we draw the center line this way. We established this was chin. And so halfway down between these spaces, right? Between this space and this space, We exaggerated a little bit in this instance, but again, about halfway. And then going down with the eye line, right? And then if we cut this circle this way, and then we did the center line through here, the ear is still in this quadrant, right? So not exactly, but again, the ear is still right here within the quadrant that we talked about that it should be. And we just connect the cheek there, the jaw would go down. And then we can obviously, the shape is however you want to decide that shape to become. And then again, if we're looking even still at like this is the space that we drew like this, and that same amount of space would be about here for the hairline, which again is pretty accurate. So while we're drawing different faces from different artists, we can still fully go back to that Loomis method, that beautiful, beautiful Loomis, right? Oh, I did that on the same layer. I didn't even open up a new layer. Well, now there's a bunch of red on here. Let's see if I have enough undos. Speaking of not undoing, let's see if we can do it. Did I have enough? I did. But the idea is there, right? That we can break these down. So now we've done two different artists and clearly can see that they're still fitting the Loomis method perfectly fine. And it looks right. So let's switch back to my black super basic sketching brush, right? And let's take a peek. We could do another peach, but what other ones do we have? Let's look at a different peach then. Thank you. Right? It's weirdly satisfying when you break stuff down and see like how art just works, right? Like you can demystify as someone who is a sciencey person. Yes, there's a lot of creativity to it, but yes, there's also a lot of logic, right? And people overlook the fact that it's a logical thing too. It's a perfect marriage of logic and technique and creativity, right? One usually doesn't exist without the other. And if you think someone isn't using logic and it's just purely creative, they're probably using logic, they just don't realize it, right? Like subconsciously they're breaking things down. Okay, so it is almost 1. So we've got like maybe we'll do like 40 more minutes probably before I need to not just eat chocolate and have real food. So I've got this one, and then I did want to look at Strawbles too. So we're gonna do a super quick here of this one just to illustrate the same idea here with this other drawing of Peach then. Again, this one feels very, I cannot remember the artist, but the very Final Fantasy, I want to say like Fukijawa or something for this. But so let's break it down, right? We do our circle. She is looking pretty down, right? Pretty low. So we've got that line almost like at the bottom of the circle, let's say. So she's looking down. And we want to like foreshorten then that jaw. It goes in pretty far and gets little. So if we draw the face and if we dictate this is where the chin is, then about halfway, this is where the nose would be, right? And then since this is an extreme proportion, it is a little bit more than this amount of space. We can push it, but the idea is the same, that like the hairline would maybe be here, but we're really pushing the way we're looking at it. So we can break it. Like we said, Loomis is not an exact science. It is a landmark. So if we have these basic landmarks in, right? And then this would kind of be the eye line down here. Ears, since she's looking down, are kind of just above the eye itself, right? And we've got the big old noggin up in here. And the head pretty much goes, since we're looking down, obviously, perspective pulls and our view is different. All right, yeah, thanks. I appreciate you stopping by, Hamiltoons. I hope I see you back here and we can chat some more. I appreciate it. It's been nice. Have a good rest of your day. You too. So again, we're drawing the jaw, blocking this in. Still just keeping this same Loomis method, right? Nothing crazy, and we'll see how it looks. The brow, like we established, this is the brow line. Easily confused with people thinking it's for the eye, but again, blocking into the brow. The eyes kind of fit within this shape. She's got Peach does a lot of these like very strong almond shaped eyes very often, right? Her eyes are very almond shaped, and they keep that pretty much in all of her designs, which is cool. Doesn't really falter too much. And even if they don't look super almondy at first glance, she usually omits a lot of the lines. But if you break down the overall shape of where the rest of that eye is, it's probably an almond shape still. Whereas if we look at Peter's in a little bit, we'll see that his are not. He does not do very almondy shaped eyes in any way. Again, not saying one is right or wrong, just saying different. Again, as noted, not trying to draw the exact, I'm not trying to say this looks like Peach's drawing. I'm not trying to draw that, and that's okay. I'm just trying to make it look proportionate and try and showcase where these landmarks exist and how they fall, right? So her nose is pretty far down here then with our landmark guides, right? And the mouth would be about halfway. So the nose, she draws noses like we established earlier, pretty simplified, but this one is actually one of her more detailed noses, surprisingly. Usually they're just like a singular line, where this we can actually see the ridge, the nostrils, and I'm blinking on what the tip of the, not septum, right? The little tip of the nose though. And like I said, I like to do, most artists do the same thing, right? Just give that little bit of shadow to the bottom, even if we're not like fully shading the thing, because it helps allude to what's going on with the nose. Because the nose is such a weird thing. When you overdo a nose, it just looks bad, right? Because if we look at our face, most lighting, the nose actually flows, right? There's like a highlight maybe, or a hard shadow cast on one side. But at the end of the day, from most angles, the nose is just an extension of the face, not like people like to draw sometimes where it's like, look at this big schnoz or whatever. And it's like, yes, that works for the style. But it's also worth noting to remember that like the nose functionally as a piece of the human head and the human face is just that, just kind of like a protrusion from the shape that we're already working with. These eyebrows, when I blocked them in, I made her look angry. I don't like that though. I don't like her looking angry. Let's raise them a little bit. A little bit like that. Just so they've got more intrigue rather than anger. Which, we wanted them angry, that would have worked fine, but I'm not going with angry vibes right now. It's a good day. It's a Monday. We're trying to positive vibes. So it's getting late, so I definitely won't, but I'll need to remember tomorrow or Wednesday. Got to give my rant on lamps, am I right? Ooh. Right, like a teaser. Like, ooh, cool rant coming later this week about lamps. What a cool guy. But yeah, hopefully everybody tuning in has been having a good Monday. I know some people have been dreading Mondays, and easy to dread, but it's the start of a new week, right? The start of something new, and keep it positive, right? Keep it positive, or at least try to. For me, I'm fortunate that I on Monday is the day that I play with my best friends, right? I get to play video games with my friends. So it is a nice thing that, like, if you can, right, in your schedule, in your life, if possible, if you do struggle with something, right, find a way to make it joyful. So if you struggle with Mondays, maybe every Monday schedule something that you know you do on just Mondays, right? It's a thing you do on Mondays that brings you joy, and that is definitely something I do, that I get to play video games and joke around and have fun with friends, right? Every Monday, obviously barring certain scenarios happen that we don't get to play, but that's my Monday at night. It's tiring sometimes because we get on late, and then I don't eat till late, and our schedules don't perfectly line up, but we make it work. But it's worth it because it brings a good amount of joy to my Mondays. And then Monday's also leg day at the gym, which is also the opposite of joy. Leg days. Mondays are busy at the gym, right? Especially my new gym now that I have to go to because the other ones are all closed. And this one is like the only one left in the area. But because it's the only one left in the darn area, it's really dang busy, especially on Mondays, especially right now at the New Year's time still. And you know, if you are not a gym goer, Mondays are generally one of the busiest days for the gym because people always statistically will start the week strong, right? Even if they're not like a fitness fanatic, if they're just trying to get in shape or start a new routine or whatever they're doing, Mondays are the day that you're like, hey, I'm going to start strong. I got this. So usually Mondays are the busiest. And then throughout the week, it falls off, right? It gets less busy as the week goes on, generally. Obviously, not a steadfast rule, just like the Loomis method. Not a rule, but you know, it's a guide that usually occurs. But one thing about the gym is that on leg machines, it is notorious for people taking a long time. Like super duper duper long, like longer than you would think. And it kind of sucks then. So when you're working with these timelines, when people are, so if I got Monday, right? I want to go to the gym on Monday. I want to get back home so I can play games with my friends, right? But I go on a Monday and it's leg day. It's busy. And then people just sit, unfortunately. Recap as I'm talking, doing this stuff. Like we established, this would be the mouth line then too, right? And sure enough, look what fits right here. Spoiler alert, it's the mouth, right? How wonderful this Loomis method is at showing us where all of these landmarks exist. Whether it's stylized, whether it's more normal, whether it's looking like Peach Momoko style, whether it's Wilson style, whether we're going to look at Strauble style in just a couple minutes and see the same thing, probably, that it exists the same across every form. But anyway, so people will sit and sit and sit real long, unfortunately, on leg machines. And so there's usually fewer leg machines, right? Like it's easier. Like if you're going, I don't do squats at squat racks because I've prone to injury. I've hurt myself before. I don't usually do that kind of stuff. So I like having more structured machinery for my leg work, which is fine, except for the fact that people will just sit on leg machines sometimes for like 20 minutes or longer. Or people will stop and just literally not even be lifting or doing a workout on them. They just sit there. And it is a very frustrating. And so when I'm going with a set amount of time, right? Like, hey, I have my, 20-minute cardio in the beginning, and then I've got my 40 minutes of lifting. But if I can't even find the means to work out the things I want to work out in that time limit, it usually overflows, and then I end up being later coming back, and I've tried to account for it. But the earlier you go, like if I were to go instead of at 7:30, it's even busier, right? So it's like there's no winning. It's a lose, lose, lose. So I feel bad that I'm usually always late to playing games, but that's just the nature of, unfortunately, going to the gym on Mondays, especially trying to do leg stuff on a Monday. Like it's not ideal. Plus also the new gym sucks. I know I've complained about it before, but the new gym is not a fun gym. The energy in that place is not one that I like for a gym. The physical layout of it is not what I like. The people working there are not the best people. There's a lot of reasons it's not my thing. But I mean, you got to work with what you got, right? And that's what we've got for our gym now. So roll with the punches. Okay, trying a little more than I need to with this face. So let me just plop in another eyeball, and then we can kind of call it and take a peek again at Peter's stuff before we call it quits. So again, we already showed the framework for where the eye was before, so we're just following that still now on the other side. Obviously nothing too extravagant with that. Her eyes are kind of wide set, and this FOV of like this angle we'd be seeing her at kind of accentuates that. But I will admit it looks like I drew them a little wider than they probably should be. But again, I kind of need to start schmoovin'. I got yammering too much, which is always great. I do enjoy chatting about nerdy things and all these fun stuff. But that means I got a little behind. But that's fine. The beauty of all of this, it's just whatever works. So that eye looks weird. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to liquefy because this looks stupid and I don't got the time to fix it. Rectify. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of making the eyes a little bigger. And then pulling them a little more together though. They did feel really, really wide, like I had said, a little too apart. I really like this look with like the almost gypsy-esque. I don't know what this character is that she drew, but I really like it. It's cool looking, this style. Like her hairstyle and stuff and the little gems. But okay. That the idea is there, right? Allude to some sort of clothing to cut off the neck there so it looks more normal. Bada bing. Bada boom. She got this, man, the hair is so cool looking, all this stuff. Like, I don't understand it, like functionally how that hair exists in space for realsies, but I like it. Try one more time. This nose rounded out a little bit. She's looking down, right? So the nose would actually dip a little more like that. And then we can bring the whole thing back up a hair. Too much. That was too many hairs. Too many hairs. All right. So I skipped the first chocolate today, right? My first chocolate did not get devoured. So I actually have another one sitting here still. So you know what that means? It's getting later, so I need to eat it. I need to eat that real nice. Okay, so we'll do a quick breakdown after all is said and done. Again, to recap the heads and stuff. But we'll do, what do we got? Ooh, it's already 1:12. Bart, that is not a lot of time. Well, there's always time for chocolate, so screw it. The chocolate. Dove, you beautiful, beautiful chocolate chocolatour. Okay. Now that I've been fueled properly, let's close out Peach's drawing. And let's take a quick peek at Strawble, okay? We'll do like 20 minutes of breaking down this stuff. And then we'll break for lunch, yeah? Hope you guys have delicious lunches at your waiting for you or ready to be cooked or whatever, you know. Gobble gobble. Something good for lunch. Okay. So, let's whoopsies, I'm touching the wrong thing. Let's break down again, starting with that circle. Good old Lumi, baby. Circle for the head, right? And this woman is looking pretty far to her right. Uh-oh, Twitch is having a problem. It did a little disconnect. I think we're good still, right? We still good? Looks like it. Yeah, that was weird. And kicked me out for a second. Anyway, so back to drawing this, right? Big circle. She's looking pretty far to the side as we established. So we'll draw that center line going pretty far over, okay? And just this little bit of excess on the side, right? Pretty, not full profile, but getting there. I don't know why I made that so dark. Deal with it. Here, I'll erase it a little bit so it doesn't look so bad. So there's that, right? Got the full circle here. Big old circle. Now, center line here of the circle. She's looking pretty straight, right? Nothing too crazy. She's not really looking up, not looking down. Pretty neutral. Just like an almost profile perspective, though. Pretty neutral. So again, if we establish this is the brow, okay? And we make up where we want the line to be for the chin. So let's say the chin's here. Then we look and we see. So Peter does do a little bit. It kind of deceives the eye, right? Because if we look at Peter's way of making a nose, his nose is cut up for the females, which I really like. I do something similar a lot. But the nose line is the bottom of the nose, right? Obviously, you look at a human face, most angles, the nose is pretty much, the bottom of the nose is kind of the tip of the nose. But a lot of his have like this strong V shape. So we do have to keep that in mind when drawing. So halfway, so if this is this space, right? What do we got? Like maybe right here-ish, kind of halfway. And that same amount of distance, we put that up here. Is that about there's the hairline then, yeah? Nose, chin, eyes, hairline. And then we do maybe like here-ish would be the eye line, the brow, nose, yada, yada, yada. We know the drill by now, right? And then lips are a little amalgamous. Lips can kind of fit where we want, but like in this instance, usually the lips would be kind of like, if this is the full circle. So I did draw it a little more ovally than it would be. So if the full circle would be more of like a rounded shape like this, the mouth would be maybe along that line. So now that we have the landmarks, we can kind of break down and see how Peter would draw it. And with his strong shape language for the nose, as we established, we can look here real quick though. First, we'll see the eye goes out, the forehead comes out a little, and then at the brow line is where the break usually occurs, right? So that's where we see a little bit of a plane shift, and it goes down. And it kind of goes down away because we don't see anything. And the way Peter draws faces, as we can see, is he does what I usually refer to as the snout method, right? So it's like the anime snout where it sticks out pretty drastic like that, right? So we'll do the same thing here where we will pull that nose at that same angle, the ridge of the nose, but then he does a nice break. But so here's where I was talking about. So his noses are pointing up, right? But technically when they go down, they hit that nose line because that's where the bottom of the nose should exist. So, right, is that line. So there's that landmark still, right? We found the landmark. He draws lips pretty pronounced with his female characters, at least, right? Pretty big lips. But the line is still kind of there, right? Like we established, it would be kind of, I drew this one a little high based on where the circle is, but it'd be around here, let's say, right? So if he draws that a little bit of lilt in from the nose out, and then we have a lip. It is slightly angled, right? So we do see the other side of the lip ever so slightly. And then the bottom lip sticks out a good amount. Almost equal, right? Top lip, bottom lip, kind of equal in this drawing. Curves up for the lipstick. Very, very pronounced lipstick usually on a lot of his female characters. Usually a lot of teals and stuff like this that we see. It's not uncommon for him to draw like that. Completely unnecessary to the conversation, but just noting it, I do like that look. So there's the lips, right? And then come back in, go back down, and what do we say? Right here is chin, so we'll break that in to where the chin should be. And go back. So he does have the slight 3/4, so instead of being like right here, that circle, right? The cheese wheel cut would be kind of a little bit recessed back. Not crazy amount like I just drew, but more so like something like that, right? Because it's just ever so slightly turned. So if we do the center line from this, then same idea. The ear exists within this quadrant, kind of. So the center line is that. So the ear exists somewhere around here, right? Again, doesn't have to be a steadfast rule. But the jaw then kind of cuts down. And so with him, it's interesting because he doesn't do any line work here for this. It's strictly the shadow that he places going up this way. But we can kind of allude to where this would be, right? And then the hair, the neck, just kind of placing these in just so we kind of have a little bit of visual landmark for the rest of this, right? So I'm going to erase a little. This was a little too heavy-handed I did over here with this pencil. So I'm going to start. We can still see it kind of. I'm not saying it's gone, but I do need to lighten it up. And since this is all on one layer, I can't just lighten the layer because then everything gets too bright. Excuse me. Okay. So we see the landmarks of the face over here are placed in, like we said, the brow comes up, the ridge of the brow, I mean, of the nose, right? And then his eyebrows are right here at that brow line. The eyes, like we said, cut in here. Nice, really sharp contrast. Oops, forgot my eraser is still really big and not opaque. So we'll do this curve of the nose. A little bit of a nostril, a little bit of the side. And then his eyes exist right in this space, right? Because there's the eye line that we established, and these are fitting right where they should. He's got the upper lid pretty heavy with the huge eyelashes. Whoops, that I undid on accident because my hand is touching and it keeps undoing. So again, I'm not trying to draw exactly what he drew. I'm just trying to see that the shapes still follow the rules despite looking different, right? That everything is still within the same bounds, the same energy. Everything is different, but oh so alike, just like everything in this world. It may seem different on the outset, but then once you break everything down, all pretty darn similar. If only humans acknowledged that a little more. But okay, so if we're keeping her brow, right, this is the brow line still. She's got like a little raise and then it tapers pretty thin, her eyebrow, this character. He does pretty angular eyebrows too. Usually comes to a point like they are here. Not quite a furrowed brow, but one that is definitely facing inward to give a little bit of sass, kind of, right? When the eyebrow's in like that a little bit, it gives a little bit of sass to the character. And so when I talked about Peach does a lot of almonds, right? Peter does not. Like, they're kind of almondy. But like, if we look at Peter's shape of the eyes, right? So if we're looking, this is where the eye line is. So we're looking somewhere in this region, right? That there'd be the eye. That's a safe assumption. I will actually real quick, just for his own style, he definitely has this space come up a little more than I drew. So I'm going to shorten that. But when I do the outline, you'll see that the rule still completely applies. It's not like I'm breaking it by any means by adjusting this here. This is just purely for my own my own visual edification to make it look a little more similar in tone. But so if we look at that, what a lot of artists will do for eyes, right, is there's a weird dome here back here like that. So it'll go more like that. So one thing interesting with the eyeball is it is, you know, kind of shaped like this, right? So your eye is like this, you've got your pupil, whatever. It is very almondy. Usually the top is usually a little bit more character than the bottom, generally. Not always. But when you're working with eyes like this, especially at an angle like this, what a pretty common way to simplify is I look at it as like a sideways V. Because if you look at most people from the side, since your eye is an almond, it gets really, 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 really thin to like almost a point at the side, regardless of your face shape, regardless of your, you know, ethnicity or anything. Those things still exist, right? So what you can do is you can kind of make a V shape and then the rounded part of the eye, right? And this kind of shape language sells pretty well the eye itself, right? Because you look at that and you see the eye. And so Peter does a lot of these, but he accentuates it, right? And I like, if we look at how he does it, he keeps a lot of straight lines. So a lot of his upper lids are straights. So if we want to follow that, we can kind of mirror similar energy, right? So let's draw a straight line for that upper lid. Straight line exists. We get a little bit of this eyeshadow up here that we'll see of color. It continues down through the lash on the side. And then the overall shape is still this rounded shape. And it's a curved V in a sense. Like this V shape has a little bit more oomph. But the same idea, right? So it's rounded here. Little curve. And this part actually goes kind of straight back. But then he does allude to this being like more of the eyelash too. So you can fatten this up like he does. Give a little bit of color here because that's just allude to that's where the eyeshadow is. Oh gosh. And then slap in her eye. So again, looking at this is definitely not how he drew it exactly. Now that I'm looking, it looks pretty rough. As usual for my first foray into most of these like style and design studies. But what we can do is we can do two things. We can quick move it, scale it up a little because it looks a little small. Right? Nothing is breaking from the general rules I've established though that we can talk about in a couple minutes. The brow continues. Very clean lines. There's nothing crazy here. So this eye looks dark as heck because I didn't put any sort of highlight in it. So let's actually redo this eye just so it doesn't feel as dead. And then her forehead cuts up like we established. And right here, right, it's kind of where the hairline is. So she's got a pretty big hairline. It goes up a little higher. So we can keep that. And it'll still look good. She's got not a big forehead by any means, but like the way the hair is pulled back, it's pretty taut. So it is a pretty strict hairline. And then it cuts in. We've got our spot that we established round about where the ear would be, right? Just around here. The ear would terminate based on here. If it's a bigger ear, kind of along the line of the lip. I do my ears my own way, whatever. He's got a big earring thing on her like that. And like I said, he doesn't really draw the jaw, but he alludes to it by showing this. And then there's like a shadow here. So I don't really want to draw the shadow, but the idea is that it goes up into the bridge here, follows that shape, and then goes back up. Okay. So the idea is this is kind of what's in shadow here, right? I'm just filling in a little bit of these spaces just to fill them to feel nicer. Since I added like the little fake shadow just so we kind of understand the plane shift of her head, right? So the neck, her hairline then would connect down to the skull. Her hair is pretty, was it just a thick braid, right? So we'll pull this up. We'll give, again, don't need to draw all the hair. We just need to make sure it at least looks like it makes sense. And then the hair is important because you have to associate, the hair is part of the head, right? And the hair exists on the skull, right? And so many times people like forget that it exists on the skull. So they either draw it too little and then it looks flat as hell, or they draw too much. And then it's like forehead city. And it looks like they've got like an afro without having an afro, which wouldn't have made sense for, this character. So it's a fine line. But so I know sometimes when you're drawing the head, the hairline isn't necessarily seeming like an important piece, but it is. The hairline and how that hair exists in space can really sell whether that piece makes sense or not. Like you could have a great looking face, but then your hairline doesn't really make sense in terms of where the hair terminates on the back of the head. And then all of a sudden the whole thing looks wrong, right? You just need one thing to look wrong. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, this looks jank. And that can easily happen with hair. So she's got this little Braid going along the top of her head, pulls back. That's a cool design. I like it. It looks pretty. It looks like, makes her look like, again, like that vibe of her face where she's like, I don't give an F. And that the hairstyle kind of fits that that energy in a good way. So again, a little longer than I'd like for how his style is. His characters are a little more like, ooh, that looked weird. Liquefy is not my friend right now. What's going on? Okay. Again, doesn't need to be exactly the same. I'm just trying to show the principles behind their movement. Or behind, like, the movement of the lines, right? That Liquefy made her face look kind of weird. Sure, done. Okay. I know it's getting late. It is past 1:30, or yeah, it is straight up past 1:30. So we are past our time, which is not ideal. So I'm gonna close this out. Let's quickly do a recap then, though, okay? So hold on, let me make it so all these can fit on a space better. Okay. So we can close this out. Doesn't really matter. Honestly, we can just close off the display itself. We don't need to see it. Anyway, so we didn't get as many as we wanted in. That's fine. I did a lot of blabbing and I enjoyed my blabbing, but we still got the functional aspect, design, and all that kind of stuff discussed, right? So to do a super duper 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 recap, okay? Let's look at this. The whole thing I wanted to illustrate today was the Loomis method of drawing the skull, correct? And how we can shape all of these things. So I'm going to do a really quick draw over just to illustrate the point, kind of hammer it home, and then we're going to call it quits. I've had to go to the bathroom for the past like hour, but I've been holding it in. And yeah, it's getting rough. I got to go. Baby's got to do what a baby's got to do. But quickly, recapping, right? That is too thin of a brush. We got our circle, right? Circle for the face. We've got our center line. We've got the face coming down. We've got from the center line to the chin line, right? Right here, we pick about halfway, and that is the bottom of the nose, right? This space to this space, and then this space here, all equal, boom, hairline, right? Fits, makes sense. We've got the cheese wheel cut, right? Center line, boom, ear. All of it fits within that Loomis head, right? Even this one looks a little different, but if we draw our circle, we pop in our center line, pop in the angle of the face, right? We see the brow line is following that center line pretty accurately. Her chin, we wanted pretty low, right? It was a longer face. So if we look at this amount of space, we cut it in about half, right? Boom, what do you know? Bottom of the nose, right? Keep this same amount of space, follow it up here. Boom, what do you know? Right around the hairline. Easy, 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 right? finish Wilson's, right? Same thing. Circle. She's looking like essentially profiled again, right? Looking a little up. Center line here becomes the brow line. Fits. We draw the chin, right? This center line down to where the chin would be. The chin stops here. Brow is here. Halfway through this space is about here. What do you know? Bottom of the nose, right? Start of the nose. And let's take this amount of space, right? Pop it here. Look at that hairline. This head was a little elongated, we established, but the same idea is that like this would be cut here like this then, right? This circle. And in that quadrant still, boom, here. We got a handful more to plow through, almost there. But again, I think we're all kind of understanding the point I'm making, that it just works, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. Even if you stylize it a little bit, it's still probably going to work. So this one, she's looking like, she's not really looking up. She's not really looking down, right? But if that's the center line to this circle that we draw, right? Brow line. And we've got this line here goes all the way to the chin. Chin is about here, right? Brow line here. Halfway. About that, right? Boom. Nose. Same distance, go up. Boom. We can, oop, that was at an angle I drew it, but you get the idea. Hairline. Her face is pretty angled, right? So we draw our cheese wheel circle, right? Center line goes through that. Lower back quadrant, here, right? Every single one of these pieces fits. No matter what we do, even when we stylize, we can push the proportions, but they still will follow a little bit of a rule, right? So right here, we established she was looking pretty far down. So we center lined out pretty far, and then we keep the jaw down, right? Right here. Brow line, jaw line. So we're looking from this angle, not up here. So looking like this. Halfway, right about here. A little extreme because the nose is longer, right? Still same idea though, almost halfway. And then like we established, this goes a little bit more extreme because we're playing with an extreme angle. But you can see those proportions still are relatively even, right? And then finally, this last one by Peter, right? This Peter Strauble drawing, right? We have our circle for her head, right? And we established the direction she's looking is this way. And the center line cuts down right in the middle, facing almost profile, but not quite. And we want this jaw to go all the way down to here, right? Jaw is there. Brow line is here. Halfway. Bottom of the nose. Same distance, right? This big old circle here. Same distance. Hairline. We draw our cheese wheel cut. We got the line up here. Should technically be curving a little bit. I did it pretty straight. And then this one would be coming around this way. That line should follow into the jaw. Look at that. Wow. Follows into the jaw. And bottom right quadrant is where the ear can fit in, right? So if we really look at all of these, doesn't really matter what we do. The Loomis method can be applied. So whether these artists used the Loomis method consciously or subconsciously, you can still break things down, right? And so when people talk to me and they say, I'm not creative, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, if you're not creative, learn to look at it analytically then, and then bleed into the creative side. So I don't want to go on a huge tangent on that because that's a whole topic I could blab on for days too, right? I'm not about to. I'm hungry. We are almost 15 minutes past our timeline, so I'm going to call it there. I'm going to do my thumbnail, right? Thumbnail of faces. And we're going to call it there. Tomorrow, I'm not 100%. I'm debating at this point now eliminating my game times entirely. So Tuesdays and Thursdays might not be streamed for games. That is still up in the air. I'll update the Twitch schedule if it changes, right? Everything is going to be accurate there always. I do update that all the time. However, I feel like I want to put more time into the content creation side of actual published stuff. And I still haven't had enough. So we'll see. I'll post differently if it's changed. Regardless, what is a guaranteed though is my Monday, Wednesday, Friday of art in the morning. Wednesday, I do have to drive my grandma probably to the hospital for an appointment. So I will maybe off a little bit for time. But for now, always Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, still consistent, right? So anyway, we learned a lot. We did some faces. We analyzed some faces. We learned all about our boy Loomis and figured out some cool stuff that way. Hopefully we'll run with it more maybe on Wednesday. I'm still undecided what the vibe is going to be, what the lesson will be. But for now, hope you guys learned something. Hope you had fun chatting about some nerdy stuff. And until next time, be kind and kick butt.